Hello, bienvenido, welcome to Sucio Talk, episode 1414. Here we go. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing good out there. Today is a very special episode for me. This is a chef that basically taught me how to cook and was able to give me the ability to go work at the top restaurants in the country, the top restaurant in the country at the time. So, you know, we talk a little bit about how I showed up there, but basically it's the same as the restaurant I'm at. Wood back door. All right, love the back door. Love going through the back door. So, Chef Jake Rojas, who currently owns Tallulah's Taqueria in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a taco restaurant, Mexican restaurant. He is Mexican descent and grew up in El Paso. He went to the Culinary Art Institute of Dallas. And then early on in his career, he worked at some great restaurants in Vegas. It was Joel Robuchon at the Mansion. That's at the MGM Grand. Then we got he was a chef de partie at Alan Ducas's Mix, and he was also at the Four Seasons Resort in West Palm Beach. So he owns, like I said, Tallulah's Taqueria. He also has Tallulah's Tacos at the Shack in Jamestown, Rhode Island, which, if you heard my episode, that is the first island that I worked on in Rhode Island at Trattoria Simpatico. So, you know, Chef Jake was kind of a local legend at that time, and you know, I heard about him through the grapevine, and it wasn't until one of my buddies was like, "Hey, you should go check out this guy. He's serious. He comes from, you know, serious kitchens. If you want to get better, you should probably go work with him." And it's probably the best decision I ever made. You know, so before we get into that, I got some shout outs. All right. My man Evan Katz, shout out to him. He's a firefighter out in said Jamestown, Rhode Island. He worked at Tallulah on Thames with me as a food runner very early on, and it's kind of crazy to hear from him because it's been so long, and you know, it's one of those people you don't want to forget him, but you know, it's been so long you don't really talk to him much. But I'm going to read his message off right here. He sent me a DM on Instagram. It says, "Yo, Brother Dave, I hope all is well, man. Not sure if you remember me or not, but I waited tables at Trat for a few years." That's Trattoria Simpatico. "When you and Charlie were starting out. Anyway, I've been listening to the pod, and when I can, hearing the episodes with you and Charlie brought back some memories. If you ever have him on again, I'd love to join in and share a couple stories. To this day, I can still remember a couple of Charlie's specials, which I have tried my best to recreate on my own. I also have a story about something you said to me once that changed my perception of working and finding your passion in life." So there you go. You know, I'm 20 years old at the time when I'm working at this restaurant, and I was able to inspire someone. You know, I didn't even know it at the time. This is the first time I've ever heard of him saying this to me. I'm curious to know what it is, so I'll be hitting him up to figure that out. And as far as Charlie Apple goes, he'll definitely be on the show again. There's no way that I'm not going to have him on. It's going to be more of a food talk formula next time because we all know about his life. We heard it on the second episode. So we're gonna talk about food, talk about ferments. He's gonna kind of talk about some things that he's working on, and it'll be more of a food talk oriented podcast. All right. Then next we have Brittany Cassidy. Brittany Cassidy was on the show already. She was the former CDC of Birdie G's. She's also right now just started doing being the chef at Violet LA, which is basically like from what I see online, it's a culinary school plus a restaurant. So good for her, man. She's such a good fucking teacher that I can't wait to see what kind of talent she pumps out of there, you know. And I'm sure the food is great. So whenever I'm in LA, I will check that out. All right. I'll be doing an LA tour in a couple weekends from now. I got a couple chefs over there that are going to be on the podcast, and I'm going to be up in San Francisco as well, getting some other people on. So this podcast is picking up slowly but surely. Next person that I'd like to shout out is Rebecca Frazier. So Rebecca Frazier works for the Caviar Company, and she had reached out to me and basically left me this message on my DMs about how much she loved the show and how much she talks about it at work. So, you know, I appreciated that because she took time out of her day to send me a message about how much she liked the podcast, you know, which is always cool to hear from people. So here's her message. Hi, Chef. I've been meaning to send you a message for probably 3 months. LOL, but I just wanted to say that your podcast is fucking awesome. I've worked with chefs for 3 years now, and I rarely get the chance to talk about something other than caviar with them. Not totally complaining, though. I didn't have any experience in the industry and had no idea how cool chefs were until I started this job. But your podcast just emphasizes everything I've said about chefs for the last 3 years. Listen up, chefs. You're seriously the coolest group of people ever. You're hardworking, thoughtful, creative, weird, and total badasses. And now that I have an outlet to hear all the crazy stories and learn how someone becomes such a badass, I feel like all my ideas of chefs are just further emphasized. I've listened to every episode since Tyler's was released, and I think I bring up something new that was mentioned on Sucio Talk to my coworkers each week. Even though we are in the same industry, there is just so much that goes on in restaurants and with chefs that no one knows about unless you are personally in it. With all of the other bullshit that chefs have gone through, there is clearly so much info that non-industry people need to know about, so we can work together to make the industry stronger than it's ever been. Chefs and their teams deserve so much more credit. You heard that? Chefs and their teams deserve so much more credit and money than they currently get. So thank you for starting the podcast. Thank you, Rebecca Frazier, for reaching out. Once again, that's of the Caviar Company. That's a San Francisco-based company that sells caviar and other luxury products. And from what I see, it's run by all women. So on National Women's Day, which should be every fucking day, I'm sorry, not just one goddamn day, thank you to all the hardworking women out there. And I appreciate people taking the time to write me, you know, and I will never leave a message go unanswered, you know. If you write in, you're definitely going to hear back from me, unless you're a fucking weirdo. Okay, there you go. There's that one. And another person I want to shout out her name is Emma Conroy. Emma Conroy. She's the GM at a restaurant called Truss. She's a Rhode Island native, and she writes in. She says she's the GM of Truss, native Rhode Islander, and she's been listening to the podcast, and she loves it. As a person that grew up in Rhode Island, sort of in the cooking scene there, it's a place that's undervalued. It's a place where chefs should migrate to, young chefs trying to make it and trying to change the game. Providence is a city that's very welcoming, and not to mention, all the farms are fucking 20 minutes away. The ocean's 30 minutes away. You know what I'm saying? So all your ingredients, everything's really, really close. So, trying to get good chefs over to Rhode Island to open new things is what needs to happen. There's two things. New chef comes into town, all the old chefs, what happens? They clench their buttholes a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They're like, what is this dude going to bring? Is at the end of the day, we're all in competition with each other. As much as restaurants should be a brotherhood, we are all in competition, right? Competition makes us better. So that's why we should have these restaurants opening up in these towns. And these towns that aren't kind of, everybody thinks I need to move to LA, I need to move to New York. And I think we heard Derek Wagner and Ben Sukol those chefs talk about the fact that you don't need to be in these places to be considered successful and have a successful restaurant. All right. Now, a lot of people talk shit about Rhode Island. Oh, it's a small state. Oh, it's this and that. Go fuck yourself. All right. From Rhode Island to you. All right. And I had a crazy thing happen to me this past week. It's not that crazy, but anyway, it's an older gentleman giving me some advice, and one of the things he said to me, and I respect him for it, because at the end of the day, he's not looking to hurt me by saying this, but he said, you know, trying to market yourself with the name Sucio is kind of counterintuitive to being a chef, right? Let's all be honest. Sucio means dirty, right? But I let him know this. In no way, shape, or form does the word Sucio frame the way I am and work in a kitchen. Now, don't get me wrong. I made some goddamn messes in my life. Spilled some water, spilled sauce, dropped shit, burned myself. You know, I went down during service a lot of times. This shit happens. And this name, Dirty Dave, right, was given to me by Chef John and Chef Kat. Those were the first ones. And probably, yeah, because I was a little bit rough around the edges, you know what I'm saying? But to me, Sucio is a state of mind, right? It's a hustle. It's constantly trying to think about things in a better form than you previously would have. It's knowing that there's infinite growth, right? So Sucio is a way of life. It's a way to be. You know, when you're in Puerto Rico and you're talking shit with your boys, the funniest ones usually like, tú eres un sucio. You know, you have this level of wit and intelligence that is unmatched, and you can use that in the world to navigate your success, the business of yourself. So Sucio equals dirty, but that is from a good place. It is not a bad thing. Now, historically, people have changed their names to have success, i.e. the band Lamb of God. Lamb of God is a death metal band who's pretty crazy story, you know, because they didn't even know how to play instruments before they formed the band, and now they're one of the biggest bands in the world, right? But their first name was Burn the Priest. As you can see, that's a little bit offensive, right? So they said, why don't we, to get mainstream media attention, we need to change our names. And a lot of people say, oh, they sold out, this and that. And I don't think they did. I think that they knew they needed to do that in order to move on in their careers. Now, at the end of the day, this shit was 20 years ago. The world was a different place, right? And the goal of myself, and I believe other successful people, is to do what you love and to get paid for it, right? To live comfortably doing your craft, whether that's music, art, cooking, carpenter, whatever the fuck it is. All right. Now, I don't do this podcast for the money. I do it for the fact that I get to interview cool-ass people. I wouldn't even say interview. Have a conversation with cool-ass people and probe their mind about what the hell was going through their head when they made certain decisions in their career. Right? So, am I trying to get paid to do the podcast? Fuck yes. Hell yeah. I'm trying to get some sponsors in here. Right? That way it opens the doors for me to go everywhere I want to go. Right? There's chefs in Denmark that I want to talk to. There's chefs in Japan I want to talk to. Kenneth Foon from Noma said, hey, let's do a podcast. I said, fuck yeah, I'll do a podcast. You got to understand, and this is a message to all the people that I will do podcasts with in the future. I do not give a shit what time of day it is. We will record the podcast whenever you want. If it's 2 in the morning, then I will be there at 2 in the morning to gather your thoughts and make sure that your ambition and charisma is heard by other people that have the same interests, because that's the people that are the listeners of Sucio Talk, right? So when it comes to the business of yourself, you have to keep your success in mind, but also not stay true to yourself and not change, right, so much. So with that being said, this podcast will continue to be called Sucio Talk, and I will continue to use the moniker David Sucio, because it does not denote the sanitation in which I work in, right? It's a state of mind. It's a personality. It's a cognitive thinker moving quickly, right? It's like you're on the highway going 80 miles an hour, but you are ingesting everything that you're seeing, everything that you're thinking, right? And absorbing the world around you in order to make decisions about what the fuck you need to do to be successful to get through the day-to-day. I just listened to I finished the book by David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, and goddamn, that is an inspirational story. I've been following him on Instagram for a couple years now, and I think he's an amazing human being and a person that's always doing the things he's preaching every day. You know, I just woke up this morning, you know, me thinking, hey, I woke up early, I went for this hike, I did shit today. This motherfucker's doing 40 minutes of straight jumping jacks. I can't even do fucking 1 minute of straight jumping jacks while falling down. You know what I'm saying? That might be an exaggeration. I think I could pull 2 minutes. But that's the sort of perseverance that this man has. And so I highly recommend that book, David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. Also this week I watched a movie called Papillon. Alright? They made a remake with Rami Malek and... Remake with Rami Malek? That's weird. It's basically about this guy named Papillon. If you don't know the word, it means butterfly in French. And he had a butterfly tattoo on his chest. And it's basically a great prison escape story. But the classic has Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman. It's an incredible movie. And it's one of those movies that when people talk about great movies and the cinematic effects and not just that, but the symbolism and the movement of the story is all there. It's a super good movie, well crafted, and even though it's a little slow to start, it keeps you engaged. You know, I mean, there's a couple scenes where he's in solitary confinement, and let's be honest. Solitary confinement is probably the worst thing that can happen to you as a human being. But in a movie, it's not that interesting. You know, it's one man in one room, and the way they were able to produce that and make a compelling scenes was insane. So as I said, I've been getting back in the movies, and that's a movie that I watched this past week here. Well, that's enough of that. On to the episode. Chef Jake Rojas. I love this man with all my heart. Shout out to his kids and his wife, Kellyanne Maurice, who was the front of the house manager at Tallulah on Thames when I worked there. And honestly, when I tell you this man changed my life, he changed my life. He gave me the discipline that I did not have. Right? I would much rather be a lazy person at this time. I wasn't lazy, I got shit done, but I definitely wasn't hustling 110%, 120%. And I think he showed me that I had other energy levels to tap into in order to become a better cook and become a better chef. And this was one of those guys that would tell you, I'm not here to train cooks, I train chefs. And he gave me that respect of an adult man, at 20 years old, Whereas before that, you know, you're treated like a kid. And where you go, you're like, yeah, whatever. And if you know, Trattoria's in Paso was a great restaurant, but, you know, let's be honest, if there was something that was a little fucked up, it would go out, you know? Because you're so busy. You're doing 600 covers in 4 hours. There's no way, you know, especially with, 4 line cooks and the chef expediting, that you are going to have enough hands, enough energy for 4 straight hours of 600 covers to make the best food possible. Now, those restaurants exist, but let me tell you something. 6 people don't work that line. You know what I mean? So if you're ever in Providence, Rhode Island, check out Tallullah's Taqueria. All right. Next week, I moved the schedule around a little bit. I'm gonna have my cousins on next week. This is Natalie Rosas and Manny Valerio. It's a very cool story. They're not chefs; they're tattoo artists, but they talk about sort of what made them or what made him do that. He basically, the way it is Manny. He did my sleeve. My cousin Natalie married him, so now he's my cousin by marriage, right? He gave me my first tattoo, and ever since then, he's basically done my whole sleeve. And this past time when I was in Connecticut, Natalie tattooed my arm because she also started doing tattoos a couple years ago. They opened a shop. She does eyebrows, all types of shit. So they're cool as fuck. And nothing was cooler than being able to record a podcast while getting tattooed at the same damn time. All right? So please enjoy that episode coming next week. You guys enjoy your day. Enjoy your commute. I'll see you next week on Sucio Talk. Bye-bye. What am I saying bye for? The episode's next. It's right after this music. Sucio Talk, episode 14. Please enjoy.
Alright, here we are. Sucio Talk, episode 14. I got Chef Jake Rojas up in this house. We're in Tallullah's Taqueria in Providence, Rhode Island. I was the first ever prep cook for the taco car, the first taco car, first rendition of this that you had. Chef, how the fuck are you?
Fucking amazing.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm glad that you're here and that you're still alive.
Yeah, for sure. Chef met me at a time when he didn't know if I was going to make it or not, and I didn't know either. So, but he definitely saved my life a little bit. So
and here you are.
I'm happy for that. So I've talked a lot about you on the podcast. People sort of know, that you were the main mentor in my chef life, and the reason why I chose to move on to other restaurants that were better, higher caliber. You were the first one that said, if you want to be the best, you got to go work with the best, and also the first to accept nothing but perfection and the best work out of me. That so you definitely knew coming into your spot that you were at a better spot than you were. And there's nothing against Trattoria Simpatico or my tenure there or whatever, but when I was like, I need to look for a better restaurant, I knew when I landed at your spot that I was at a better restaurant. So
Killer.
Yeah, for sure. But here at Sucio Talk, we're going all the way back to when you were a little niño, so where are you from, Chef?
I'm born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I'm a Tejano.
All right, there you go.
A border kid, I grew up on the border. Life is fast on the border. You learn shit the hard way. It is definitely the school hard knocks on the border. I was fortunate enough to fall into the mix with the wrong people at all the right times, and and I was able to survive that. But all joking aside, growing up in El Paso, I was exposed to food at a young age, which was awesome. My family all cooked. Everyone kind of had a part in cooking. My old man cooked a lot. My mom was always cooking. So I was kind of always around. Home cooked meals, I was kind of, it was kind of always a thing. We didn't eat really fast food much at all, ever. You know what I mean? And El Paso is kind of like the land of like Tex-Mex, but not so much. You know what I mean? It's one of the largest ports of entry into the U.S. from Mexico. So I was a walk away from walk into Mexico, and as a 13-year-old kid with an 18-year-old ID, it was the life.
He started early. 13 years old, getting fucked up in Mexico. Here we go. So that's all for all you 12-year-olds that are out there playing on your phone. Just remember, life could be a lot better. You know what I'm saying? So your mom, your dad, Mexican. Your mother,
not Mexican.
Got you.
Yep.
So how did that play a role in what you ate? Like, obviously you said your dad cooked, your mother cooked. Was it totally different? Were they cooking from their cultures, or did they kind of like?
Yeah. So what a lot of it was my old man wanted the Mexican classics, so my mom had to learn how to make the Mexican classics, right? So I'm talking enchiladas. I'm talking about a good rice and a good bean. Mm-hmm. You gotta have those are staples. Right? How to make tortillas? Like you gotta. If you can't do that, you know what I mean? Like you're SOL. But anyway, so she got really good at that. But my mom's family is Polish, so her cooking every once in a while would be like gołąbki and pierogies and borscht and like straight up Polish things.
Yeah.
And smoked kielbasa. There's a lot of little Polish kielbasa places in Texas. There's a large group of Polish especially in West Texas that are killer at making kielbasa. So there was a lot of that growing up. But in general, I feel like it was typically rice and beans every day with the protein and always some kind of jalapeno or pickled chili or whatever. But that was just it. Menudo on Sundays, every Sunday. My mom would give me the pot for menudo. I'd go down to the corner store, and you would get your pot filled up for menudo. They charge you by the pot, and you buy a stack or two of corn tortillas fresh, and some bolillo bread, which is like a nice white fluffy like torta sandwich style bread. Mm-hmm. That's just like
sweet.
Yeah, sweet, okay. But it soaks up the juice. So, but that was the weekly get up. You know what I mean? But my old man was all about like. He wanted to be a world traveler, but just never got the chance.
I hear you.
So we did a lot of traveling through food. There was a lot of him messing around with pasta, and him messing around with Greek food, and him just wanting to try new foods.
Things, yeah.
And he was just always into trying new stuff.
Fuck yeah. So that sort of got into you a little bit. And,
for sure. Yeah, it made me realize that food is more than just sustenance.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a level of skill involved in it, a level of love that you need to have. And then sort of, when did you first start working in kitchens?
Yeah. It was in 96 or 97, I think it was. I had just gotten in some serious trouble, and I landed myself in this dropout recovery, vocational school. That half day was vocational, and the other day was kind of this accelerated learning thing. Because at that point I was probably a junior, and I maybe had like 2 or 3 credits.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
We're
excelling.
Not at school.
No, I wasn't there ever, and I thought that maybe I could go to this program and speed through it and bang it out and schmooze my way through. And for the most part, I was able to do that. But the other half day was a vocational. So when I'm sitting in the office with my mom, I remember the day, very vividly. Sitting there with her, she's pissed off that I'm in trouble, that we're even there, right? And the counselor sitting across the desk, and she says, welcome, all the BS. These are the programs we have to offer you. CAD drawing, cosmetology, mechanics, engineering, graphic design. This is early, mid 90s or whatever. And I wasn't really into any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then she throws out culinary arts. So I'm like, what's culinary arts? I've always kind of been an artistic, creative person, I've always had an eye for that kind of stuff.
So
you
when
know
she
what I
said
mean?
art, you were
Yeah, I was
what?
like art. I was like, okay, I'm into art. What is it? And she's like, oh, art, culinary arts. That's the, it's where we teach kids the foundation of classical French cookery. And I was like, what? Like, you teach people to cook? Like, you can do that? You know what I mean? And at that time, like, I was probably blazing trees probably more often than I probably should have.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, there's nothing. This could be good. I could, maybe blaze before.
Yeah.
And then go to class and maybe cook myself something to eat.
Yeah.
That was where my mind was, right? So I end up in this class, this vocational class, and it's probably about, 4 to 5 months into it. And the chefs, they're strict, right? Like, they wouldn't let me touch a pan. I wasn't able to do any cooking. Like, all the opposite. I was on the dish every day, or I was on the floor every day, sweeping, mopping, right? Like, that's just where they had me. And I finally came up to one of the instructors. I was like, Sean Nugent was his name. He saved my life, the guy. I say to him, rather, I joined this class because I want to learn how to cook. You guys aren't teaching me anything about cooking.
Yeah.
He's like, well, if you stop coming to class high every day, we might let you pick up a knife. And I said, wow, okay, these guys,
They definitely know it's
they
stone.
knew what was going on, right? So, I mean, I'm not proud of that, but that's just what happened, right? And so when I was able to rectify that little problem, they kind of took me under their wing, and they realized that I had a natural ability, I think, and they taught me how to make my first galantine, my first ballantine, very classical French things. And then these cooking competitions came up through this organization called Skills USA VICA, or Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. And I competed at the city level, and I won. And then I competed at the county level, and I won. And then I competed at the state level, and I won. And ended up going to nationals for two years in a row and winning the 2 years. So got a full ride scholarship to culinary school, and that's how that happened. But as I was a student there, the chef got me a job at the premier restaurant in El Paso at the time, which I believe probably still is. It's called Cafe Central, and it's downtown El Paso, and it's where I tasted my first seared foie gras. It's where I tasted my first oyster. It's where I had lobster for the first time. It's where I tasted truffle oil, right?
Yeah.
It's where I tasted everything besides rice and beans that I was used to. And the kitchen was like a kitchen of bandits. It was just like, we were all just I was the youngest guy, obviously. I was a teenager. And I was in this kitchen with all these like 25 and 30-year-old dudes that are just raging hardcore.
Yeah.
And I was already raging at a super young age, so I just I fit right in.
Yeah.
And so like I worked there for 2.5 or 3 years. And finally, like I had kind of got to that point where I'm like way too old to be at as a senior at school.
Yeah.
So I ended up dropping out again and just working. And but I had the scholarship money to use. So the culinary school in Dallas called me. The Culinary Institute of America of Dallas, rather, calls me, and they say, "Hey, listen, like you've got the scholarship money. Like if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it."
Yeah.
So I got that phone call, and within like weeks, I was at community college in El Paso, got my GED.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, like I'm telling all my friends, like, "Yo, I'm out," and they're like, "You're not going. You ain't gonna do it. You ain't shit. You ain't gonna do it." And I was like, "Deuces, I'm out." And I just left. I just literally picked up, left. My old man gave me his van. I lived out of this van. So I moved to Dallas, which is like a 12 to 13 hour drive from El Paso.
A long time away from home.
It's not a short drive. And I lived out of the van. I lived out of the van for like the first 2 months.
Yeah.
Month and a half.
So going to culinary school where you have to have your shit ironed.
Yeah, I was
living
living out of this
fucking
van. I was showering at the at the dorms in or the whatever it was there at school. It wasn't really a university; it was an art school.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really dorms. It was just kind of like these like places where you can like kind of wash up,
Okay.
washrooms or whatever.
Okay.
So I did that for a little while, and then I ended up landing a place with some homies moved from El Paso. They're like, "Oh, you really are going to do it?" So they moved there, and then we kind of got a place, and then that's how that whole thing went down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What were your friends trying to do up there? Just chill out?
Just
Like,
trying to
Jake's
milk
up
me.
there, fuck
Yeah,
it.
just trying to milk me. I felt like I've always kind of been, I've always had a leadership quality to myself. So I've always been the one to take the first step.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. That's always good.
Yeah.
And then, so you're in this school. You finally get a place 2 months after. Where did you live? Where did you get a place?
I
How'd
lived
that happen?
in Oak Cliff, which is
Oak Cliff.
South Dallas,
Uh-huh.
which is definitely the roughest neighborhood
Yeah.
in Dallas, right? But I was kind of used to that. You know what I mean? I kind of grew up on the street a
You're
little
living
bit.
in your van. Ain't nobody gonna fuck
Yeah,
with you.
at that point, we had rented a place, and it was definitely in the hood for sure. And so two of my buddies ended up moving in with me, and I had a job at a country. I ended up landing a job at a country club, and met a chef there named Michael Scott, and Michael Scott really showed me like the shit that I thought I knew.
Yeah.
I was a little cocky. I felt like I was coming to culinary school. I'd already been cooking for a couple years. I was in these culinary competitions. I had won.
Yeah.
I kind of had a big head. You know what I mean? I was the president of the culinary arts team for the ACF. You know what I mean? We did some competitions in culinary school and won. So when I took this job at this country club with Michael Scott, he was one of the presidents of the Texas Chefs Association and the ACF.
Yeah.
ACF was a big thing back then.
It was. Yeah.
So I was able to jump in with him, and I became a commis for his team, and his team did international competitions, Sweden, Denmark, a bunch of countries in Asia, and I was able to jump on with them as the team's commis.
Okay.
So I traveled with them to a couple different countries as like a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid. And that really opened my eyes to travel. It opened my eyes to the world. It was my first time out of the U.S., out of Texas, I feel like, in some ways, And he's the one that said to me, you know what I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to surround yourself with the best people.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Michael Scott, I don't know if I would have gotten the direction I needed to really push myself to the next level. And then you know how this business is. It's like you end up taking a job somewhere, and then this guy knows that guy, and before you know it, you say you're going here, and it's like, oh, I got a homie there, or whatever else. And that's kind of how that happened. And he got me a job in South Florida.
South Florida. What was the place called?
I ended up moving to Boca Raton, and I went to a resort there called the Boca Raton Resort.
Got you. So this is you finished with school, getting in the van, driving to Florida.
No more van. The van shit the bed. now I'm in a 1990 maroon Z71 pickup truck.
There you go. Classic.
Driving through Louisiana, Mississippi.
Almost getting killed.
The truck broke down twice.
Yeah.
I spent all the money I had to get a place when I got to Florida on getting the truck fixed on my way there.
Yeah.
Which sucked. Now I'm in the truck again, living out of the truck when I get to the Boca Resort until I could get enough money put together, you know what I mean, to get me a place. And I got me a little one-bedroom studio finally, like right on the beach, and life was grand.
Fuck yeah. How old were you then?
I just turned 21.
21, living on the beach in Miami.
Boca Raton, Deerfield Beach, Fort Lauderdale area.
Okay, got you. What's that, north of Miami?
It's north of Miami.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
I'm not really good at geography.
It's all good.
I definitely let everybody know that on the podcast. Don't follow my geographical fucking... I have no idea where I am. So you go to Florida, and then you get this job. Now, to get the job that you got when you talked to somebody on the phone, so they got you the job.
I remember mailing my resume.
Okay, there you go. Mail fucking resume. That doesn't happen anymore, right?
I mailed my resume to their HR department with my my internship papers. I mailed it to them.
Yeah.
And I had a phone conversation with the chef, Andrew Rowenbeck was his name. I had a conversation with him. He's like, Michael Scott's my boy. I hear that you're like his go-to, and you've spent a lot of time there. And I also, when I was in Dallas, I also worked at a place called the Mansion on Turtle Creek for a chef named Dean Faring, which was the kind of complete opposite of what I was doing in the country club stuff.
That was sort of an institution in Texas.
Yeah.
I've heard of that chef and that place.
Yeah. He's still doing his thing.
Yeah.
Dean is no longer the chef there. Actually, one of my old chefs is now there, Bruno Davillon. Who's an Alain Ducasse guy. But so yeah, it's kind of crazy how that whole thing. But the Mansion on Turtle Creek definitely was the spot.
The premier spot.
It was the premier spot, and I was able to spend 6 months there before I left.
Okay.
Before I left out to Florida.
Were you staging?
I was kind of like doing a couple days a week and then not getting paid there, but then getting paid, at the country club.
Were you on the hotline at all, or just a prep?
No, I was just kind of like more of prep, more garmager, you know what I mean? They didn't really let me on. The guys on the hotline were like 4 Mexican dudes who had been there for 40 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You ain't cooking the shit better than they do.
No, you didn't cut, you know what I mean? So the only thing I was able to do were the lobster tacos. That was like their dish back then, and the lobster tacos, I remember just getting crushed with those fucking tacos. It was just you know what I mean? It was bad.
I bet you're like, I don't want to make tacos ever again.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was coming from a country club thing, right? You're serving members who want special request things. And there's a little bit of creativity there because some of the members would be like, I don't care what you're cooking, just cooking something good, And that's just what the members wanted. So you did what they wanted. And then I was coming from the competition world where, you plan and plan and plan, and then you execute one time and then it's done.
Yeah.
So at that point, I had hotline experience, but not like what those guys had.
Yeah.
Those guys were like savages.
Yeah.
They're
like, we don't fucking want you over here.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of want it more.
Oh, it made me want it more for sure. But I knew I was there only for a short period of time, and it was kind of just a stepping stone. And I was able to be around Dean for a short period of time, which was awesome. He was like, at that point, man, he was like such a celebrity, and he was like sponsored by like Wranglers and like Levi's, and like he had like all. It was my first taste of like what superstar celebrity chef could be, right? This was when Emerald had just kind of started his cooking show, and I didn't even know about Emerald's cooking show, but it was in those times. It was it was 2001 and 2 and 3.
So you get a little respect.
Yeah.
That was when Hell's Kitchen was on at that time.
Yeah, probably.
Ramsey in fucking prime time.
Yeah,
I remember
probably.
as a kid, I was watching that shit like, wow.
Yeah.
So you go to this resort, and sort of, what did it have you doing there when you first started?
Started in banquets. I started as a banquet plater. I was plating up food for all these massive
500, 600 people weddings.
And then, like my first 2 months, that's what my deal was, because I was on an internship. And then I was able to move through that. And then I moved there. You kind of cycle through different kitchens.
Yeah.
So I cycled through 2 other kitchens: an Italian kitchen and then a kind of an international kitchen that kind of did a little bit of everything. We had breakfast and all that other shit. And then I ended up at the premier restaurant, or the fine dining restaurant, which was called 27 Ocean Blue, and that was on the 27th floor of the resort, overlooked the Intercoastal, overlooked the Atlantic Ocean. It was stunning, right? Absolutely stunning. And when I got up there, I was like, all right, this is where I need to be, right? And at the time, there was a chef there named Rick Boyer. Rick had come out from working from Arizona in Scottsdale for a chef named something Serrano. I can't think of his name, but super well-known chef in Vegas when Vegas was just popping off, and so I knew he knew what he was doing, so I knew I wanted to be in that kitchen, so I did everything I could to stay there,
Yeah.
right? So I convinced them to not push me on to the next, you know what I mean, to the next phase of the internship. And I probably only had like another 6 months or whatever left of it, and I was able to convince them that they needed me in that kitchen.
Yeah.
And I was able to finish off, you know, whatever internship left I had in that kitchen.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting hired on full time there, and then I ended up working my way up there, you know, to sous chef there. And I was young.
How long did that take you to get the sous chef?
I think 2 years.
2 years. So
Yeah.
you're 23,
Yeah.
sous chef, Florida.
Yeah.
At this point, you're probably like, I fucking made it, bro.
Yeah,
You know?
I was.
Because your head
Yeah.
gets big, and
Yeah,
you're like,
for
I made
sure,
it.
for
Yeah.
sure. And then, you know, and then I took a little hiatus, and I went up to New York for a little while. I was up there. Somebody that I had worked with had moved up there. So I was like, let me just give it a shot. You know what I mean? So I drove up. I decided I was going to leave the resort. I drove up. I spent a couple weeks there, and it was winter.
And you said,
And I was like,
this.
yeah, this is not for me. I don't care how hard everyone says, you know, if you want to be the best, you got to go to New York. But I was like, yeah, I'm a border kid, and I'm not going to deal with this fucking winter. And I was paying so much money to park my Z71 pickup truck everywhere. You know what I mean? And I was just like, man, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I did a stage with Danielle, and there was a chef there named Zach Bell at the time, and or whatever, and he ended up coming down to Florida, and then I did a couple days there, and I realized that it wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
But then a homie of mine had gotten a position at the Four Seasons in West Palm, and he is like, why don't you just come here? If you're going to come back, why don't you just come here? So I ended up going to work at the restaurant at the Four Seasons in West Palm Beach.
Okay.
And that was a really, really high-end situation, right? It was a couple of steps ahead of what we were doing in Boca. It was a super small team. You prepped from start to finish your whole station every day, all day, from butchering fish to making your own pasta, everything.
Yeah.
That's what you did. And me and the chef didn't really see eye to eye.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I ended up not sticking it out there longer than a year. I think I was there about 11 months, and then I had got a job offer to move to Vegas. So I left the Four Seasons and
Where
moved
was
to Vegas.
how did that job offer come through?
One of the guys that I had worked with in Boca had moved to Las Vegas to open up a restaurant under Wiley Dufresne, who was at a steakhouse.
Okay.
And so Wiley was running a steakhouse. Somehow he knew Wiley and had moved out there and was working there. So he's like, why don't you come out and work here? So when I got out there, I don't remember what happened. Something happened where you have to hire union people there before you can hire anyone from the outside.
Yeah.
And someone that had been waiting on the list for this, that was a union member, they had to hire them first. So the chef was like, well, we can bring you on, but it's going to be this amount of time, you know what I mean, before we can bring you on. So I found out that Alain Ducasse was opening up, and I applied there, and I got hired on as, kind of as a junior sous there.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah.
So you're talking about bouncing from Florida to New York, back to Florida
Yeah.
to Vegas.
Yeah.
And then, when you're growing up, you kind of hear what Vegas is all about. So I'm sure before you moved there, you were like, I'm going to fucking Vegas.
I knew what I was getting myself into.
You're like, I know what I'm loading this car up for.
Yeah. And you know what? I had been in South Florida for a few years at that point, and the desert is home to me.
Yeah.
So the thought of coming back to the desert was exciting to me. So at that point, I had a homie that decided to go to Chicago, and I was going to end up going to Chicago. And then I kind of realized how cold it was there. I was like, I'm not going to Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm going to Las Vegas.
Did you work with that homie before?
Yeah. His name's Lee Wolin. We worked together.
The chef of Boca.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? It's like that restaurant, the fact that you guys, your lives intertwined. My life is intertwined with a lot of people that worked at Boca who came from you and who didn't. Like
Yeah.
right now, Joe Maggio, who's the sous chef at the restaurant on Meadowood.
Yeah.
He's about to go help them with that Ojai open, and he's a listener. So shout out to you, Joe. But he knows Bree.
Yeah.
And,
Sweet.
and yeah, so it's like, you know, he heard about you
Yeah.
through Bree and
Yeah.
how that restaurant worked. So
Yeah.
when he came to stage at the restaurant and he was like, "Oh, where'd you work?" And I was like, "This place called Tallulah on Thames." And he's like, "Oh, you know Bree and Andrew Cohen?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I know about your chef. Like,
Yeah.
how are you still alive?" You know, kind of thing. I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, and it's crazy how shit, you know, that carries on.
Yeah.
And even like, fucking, that was what, probably 20 years ago.
Yeah,
And-
I just had a Facebook post pop up of actually a picture of Lee and myself and the rest of the crew there. It was 19 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's crazy to think that, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's been 18 or 19 years ago that it's been that long. But yeah, so Lee and I kind of, you know, we were homies. We ran, you know, I like to think that we ran the hotline there at the Boca Raton Resort.
Yeah.
And he's the one that actually took the job at the Four Seasons and got me the job at
It was
the Four
like, hey,
Seasons.
come, yeah.
Yeah, and he was always able to take it on the chin a little bit better than I was. I always held a grudge.
Yeah, I
You know
hear
what
you.
mean?
I hear you.
And I always felt like I had something to prove, and I don't know. I always took things personal. I learned when I moved to Vegas to not take it personal. You know?
Yeah, it's business. At the end of the
It's
day.
business. Yeah, it's business. But I was taking it personal for whatever reason, and yeah, man, that's how. So I ended up jumping in the truck and fucking driving across the country again to
Yeah.
Vegas, which is like a solid 3-day drive.
Exactly.
You know, it's like yeah,
So-
it's rough.
You get to Vegas, and are you starting right away? Do you have a place to live, or we live in the
No,
truck
no,
again?
we're no more of that shit. You know,
Save some money in
I
Florida.
do remember though when I pull into Vegas. At that time, I got a U-Haul truck, and I'm a Volkswagen guy, so I've got a '69 Volkswagen Beetle towing behind me. I've always been a Volkswagen guy. It's kind of just always been my thing. So I'm towing my Bug in a U-Haul truck out there. And I lose the hood to the car. Like, all this shit happens on the way there. It's pretty hilarious. I ended up stopping in El Paso. I got arrested in Mexico, like, on my way there, you know, with the U-Haul truck on the U.S. side. I got arrested in Mexico for some stupid shit. And then, like, I was like, the whole time I was like, this is why I'm not coming back to El Paso. Like,
Yeah,
I just can't,
exactly.
you know.
Come back
Anyways,
one day, you're arrested.
I finally get out or whatever and drive to Vegas. And when the night I get to Vegas, it's like whatever, a weeknight. It must have been like midnight or whatever. I pull into a CVS, and I had a rented apartment over the phone, sent out the money, like everything. It was paid for. I had money now.
Yeah.
Right? To just do it.
Yeah.
Diamond Sands. I remember that was the name of the apartment complex that I was renting from, and it was on Las Vegas Boulevard, South Las Vegas Boulevard. So it's just like, I was living on Las Vegas Boulevard, which is crazy. But anyways, I pull into, I don't know if it was CVS or whatever it was, you know, and it's midnight, and I'm sitting in the U-Haul truck, and I know I can't get into the apartment until the next day, right? It's all locked. I don't know the code, whatever. So I go into the whatever CVS is, and you know, they serve alcohol 24 hours a day. So I buy myself a bottle of Crown Royale or whatever. Right, and I sit and some apple juice, I think it was, and I'm sitting in the cab of the U-Haul truck, just like sipping away. I'm like, I made it.
Yeah.
I fucking made it.
This is it.
You know, this is me now. You know, and I remember that moment like pretty vividly, just being like, all right, like this is a new chapter in your life. Like this is it. You know, I'm rolling solo. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, I grabbed this apartment. I'm there for a while. I end up working at Mix, which is an Alain Ducasse property. Again, it's at the, I don't know what it was, 64th floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, which overlooks the whole strip. It's stunning. It's the sickest restaurant. If you've never heard of that restaurant, you got to look it up, because it was just, for me, it was the first taste of what that brigade system can be. It was a large restaurant. There was a lot of cooks in there. You know, it was the first place I worked where only the sous chef plated. You know, so each station had a sous chef on it. We had like 4 or 5 sous chefs in the kitchen at one time. Then you had, your CDC. Then you had Bruno, who was the chef, and then you had Sylvain Porte, who was the corporate chef for Ducasse, and then you had Ducasse.
Mm-hmm.
And Ducasse was there a lot, you know what I mean? And I was there kind of close to the opening of it, and I started on the garde manger side, and I was promised, like I said, this junior sous chef thing, and I had to prove myself.
Yeah.
I had to prove myself that I was worthy of it. So I come in, just as a cook, really to start, and with the promise of moving up, and I met lifelong friends there.
Yeah.
And it was, it was 200, 300, 400 covers of really, really well-crafted food.
Yeah.
Because the kitchen was massive, and we were able to produce
do it, yeah.
And it was my first taste of working in a union house, which was kind of weird. We mandatory had to clock out for a break. Every day, half an hour. Everyone would go down to the chow hall inside the Mandalay Bay Hotel.
Those are fucking crazy from what I hear.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's just thousands of hotel people, workers, food and beverage people. Everybody is in there, and you've got a swipe card, and you swipe your card to eat every day, and you know what I mean? It's it's crazy. What the fuck you want, a ribeye steak? You know what I mean? It's
full
crazy.
On buffet lines.
Full on, you just crush food, right? And guys are playing cards, and dudes are betting, and dudes people are sleeping. You know what I mean? It was crazy to see,
where,
you know what I mean?
Mandalay Bay, I've been there before. Where the fuck is this cafeteria at?
It's in, I can't even tell. It's in the basement somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get so turned around in those big-ass places.
Yeah, man. Because, as a guest, you only see the guest fucking elevator.
Yeah.
What must the service elevator look like? Because there's an underground in Vegas.
Pretty dirty.
Yeah.
Pretty dirty.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? You got, you have a bunch of people that's just a means of financial.
Yeah.
You know
they
what
don't.
I mean?
Yeah. They don't need.
It's just a job for a lot of people. You know what I mean? And then for others, it was a profession, and who was who. You know what I mean? And that's how the union houses work too. For a lot of people, it's a profession, and they take it fucking seriously. And then for another portion of them, it's just a means of earning money. And that for me was an eye opener of fuck, I'm working with 10 or 15 really solid people that are here for a reason, and then we've got 5 or 10 over here that could give two shits about what we're doing, and will literally drop their tools when it's their break and say, sorry, I'm going to break, and just leave in the middle of service, in the middle of mise en place, in the middle of whatever, just dip, just be I'm going to break, I'll be back. And it's well, I never worked with any group of people that ever treated their job that way. You kind of just work through your break. You kind of just you ate out of a quart container. You did whatever you needed to do to make sure you're ready for service. There it was just I don't care if we're ready for service or not. It's break time.
It's my break.
I'm out. You know what I mean?
Got
and
it.
So I learned I was never going to be that person. So I learned that who those people were on my team, and I just always planned to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And I think the chef knew that, and the chef knew we were all the ones that were there for a reason. Knew what needed to happen.
Yeah.
And we were banging some serious.
What
serious
station
food.
were you on?
I started on garde manger there.
What kind of dishes on garde manger are we talking?
We were doing this crazy, almost Mediterranean influenced lobster salad. So it's super extra virgin olive oil, lemon, chiffonade of parsley and chive. But then you would take an avocado and you would slice the avocado in a way that you would kind of put this fan shape out on a piece of plastic wrap. Then you'd throw 10 or 15 grams of lobster salad in this, and then you would wrap it into this beautiful ball. So it was like a fan-shaped ball on the outside. But I mean, it's time-consuming as shit. So you're making 75, 80 of those a night.
Yeah.
So you were just completely in
making
the
them the
fucking
whole night.
weeds. Yeah. We were there's these little things called coquitos, which are like baby coconuts, tiny, and we were shaving those on a mandolin. I don't remember where they were coming from, but they were they're brown on the outside, white on the inside. Like a mature coconut is, and we were shaving them on a mandolin, fucking taking the fingers off at all times.
Yeah.
And then toasting them and putting them on a lobster curry
Toasting
dish.
them. That must have fucking, how many
Yeah,
did you burn after you
it's like
slice
how many
them and then you
fucking
burn them
times
and then
you
you're like, I
burn
gotta
a whole
slice
half
again.
sheet tray of them. It's like fuck.
Nothing like being in the shit.
Yeah, but that restaurant, I met guys that were coming from the French Laundry. I met guys that were coming from, all over, the high-end places in San Francisco. Guys that were coming from Danielle. Guys that were coming from all over the country, all over the world, to work at this Ducasse property.
So you were like, I'm doing the right fucking
Yeah, I was surrounded with a lot of really, really dope cooks.
Yeah. That's awesome.
There was, like I said, there's a few bad eggs, but that's just the way it always goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surrounded by a bunch
Now,
of
how
really
was the
serious
culture?
dudes.
You're surrounded by all these people who are hungry. They worked at the laundry, and you guys sort of had your own little club, because at that point, and I'm telling you, because I didn't know fucking about any of that till 2009 or 2008. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so at this point, I feel like you and just a select few of those people who worked at those restaurants knew what was up. How was that, like, sort of perspective, like, and knowing other cooks from other restaurants that maybe didn't know that side of things? Did you feel like you had an advantage? Did you feel like you were on the cusp of something?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I was able to connect the dots, right? I had the cookbooks. I own the cookbooks, you know what I mean? I was able to kind of connect the dots. And I was able to ask questions. I was able to be like, yo, you worked there? Like, I've always wondered about this dish. Like, and back then you kind of traveled with cookbooks in the book bag. You know what I mean? It's just like, as cooks, you would kind of just like, there was no Instagram.
No internet, yeah.
Like, the internet was a thing, but like none of us had it on our phone.
Yeah.
Really, you know what I mean?
Got that Nokia.
Yeah,
Green
playing
screen.
Snake all day long,
Snake.
sitting on playing Snake on the
Solitaire.
shit, and no more like surfing Instagram.
There you go.
So like cookbooks were still a big influence, and I think in all of our lives. So like I said, I was able to kind of, I guess, connect the dots to dishes that were meaningful to me, and I was able to kind of live vicariously through like the way some of these cooks were talking about executing them and preparing them. So like I felt like I was able to kind of gain insight that way. And then when I started working there, I started to travel on my own. We would, because it was a union place, we would get vacation time.
Yeah.
Whether you work, whether you work 1 year or 5 years, you get
like,
time
what
off.
is vacation?
Yeah, and I was, I was so close to California. I was, I went up to Napa a couple times, and went up to LA a couple times, and went through Scottsdale, Arizona, and dined at a couple places, the Venetian Hotel, and all these dope spots. So like I was getting my taste, and then Star Chefs had just started, which I think they're still doing their thing, but this was like probably 2004 or 5-ish areas, and Star Chefs had just started. So now I was come and fly into New York City to come to Star Chefs.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my God, you've got like, Juan Lier, Zach, now you've got Ferran Adria, you've got all these world-renowned, well-known chefs coming to New York City to do demos and to do all these things. So I was, I had learned about it through someone that had come to Vegas from New York, and now, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna fly out to New York, and I'm gonna go to this thing. And I've been going ever since the first one, and I think there are probably like 18 or 19 of them in at this point. And when you were working for me, I mean,
you'd go down
I would
there,
still go down there, and I still try to do that, and that's like the one thing that has allowed me to kind of like just be inspired.
Yeah, for
a
sure.
little bit more. Yeah.
Look at what others are doing,
Yeah.
and I know that I think Chef did one or something.
Yeah, actually, Costa was there, and I hit him up. I was like, "Yo," I was like, "Galati work for you or what?" And he's like, "Galati." I was like, "Tall Puerto Rican kid." He's like, "Oh yeah, Dave." I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, are you Jake Rojas?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I've heard about you." I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about you." And so like we talked shit a little bit.
I love
about
that.
you.
I love that. Yeah.
But yeah, so that the time at Mix was dope. I was able to, like I said, I was able to spend some real quality time with a lot of dudes and girls that were like super into it, and then I jumped onto a little like prep thing with some of the Guy Savoy guys in the morning, And then I found out that Joe Robuchon was opening up at the MGM, and like, you know, the laughing thing at Ducasse was, you know, you never leave Ducasse to go work for Robuchon. It's like, you know, they're two superstars of France.
Yeah,
like,
you should pick one or the other.
You gotta choose one school or the other. And I was just like, fuck that. Like, that's not my gig. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here to learn. Like, I want, yeah, I'm here to learn. You know. And so I hit the chef up, Bruno. And I was like, I did one of those. Chef, can I speak to you? You gotta get those. You already know the cook's about to fucking drop some news on you.
Yeah.
Shit. So I hit him up. Was like, all right, I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave, but I just want to ask you what your opinion is.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, listen, I heard I heard Joe Robuchon is going to be opening at the MGM Grand. You know, I know it's a ways out. How would you feel if I applied there? And he looked at me. He's like, how are you going to apply there in his French accent? You know what I mean? And he's like, my friend is going to be the chef, Claude Lepuy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, do you want to work? Do you really want to work there? And I was like, yeah, I think it would be really great for me to try to work there. So he helped me out. He helped me get a job there. He saw that I was eager. He saw that I wanted it. So, you know, he put a good word in with me. And, you know, most places in Vegas, you got to go through HR.
Yeah.
And you got to do the whole song and dance and the whole deal. And because it was Joe Robuchon, it was just like, fucking, there was no HR.
Above the law.
There was no union.
Yeah.
It was not a union house. It was just like, okay, you're going to work here. This is what we do. Da, 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 da. So I got a job there. And then again, you know, now I'm surrounded with guys now that have been all over the world.
Yeah.
You know,
not just America.
Not just America. And that was a whole new influence for me.
Yeah. How was your stage at Robuchon? Did you have to stage?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
How was that?
It was intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense. So I did 3 days of stage. And my first day, all I did was airbrush plates.
Okay.
Like, you know, part of
airbrush, like with a fucking machine,
machine airbrush and like stencils and fucking like little like lobsters and crabs and like weird shit, you know. But that was part of it. Like, you know, his food is very much a painter's palette. It's very much looked at as, you know, artistry in a lot of ways. So, you know, every plate had an underplate, and the underplate got decorated.
Yeah. And
you went all out with the decorations.
Oh, fuck,
you know, pine cones and fucking quail eggs and, you know, like airbrush lobsters on it and like all this shit. So like there's this plate rack that held like 60 plates in the kitchen that were just the underplates to the dinner plates.
Yeah.
And someone's kind of job was to make sure that all those plates were ready for service.
Yeah.
And so that's usually like what you know, all of the stagiaires were fucking doing, you know. And dude, this one time, man, it was terrible. I thought I was gonna fucking get fired that day. We're standing there, right? And Mr. Robuchon and Claude are standing at the plate tree, we called it.
Yeah.
You know, with all the fucking decorated plates. And we used to use this like airbrush paint that you had to mix alcohol and like this other substance with. I can't remember what it was called. But it was so that when you spray painted, you know, when you airbrush the plate, it would become wipeable. It didn't like stick. Like,
gotcha.
And so I'm mixing. We had like this little, you know, fish tub of paint, all colors, like magenta and gold and fucking blue and glitter and fucking just crazy shit, right? But that was like part of it. And so we're, you know, so I'm standing there and I'm doing the thing, and Claude turns around and he and I are talking about one of the colors is a little off that he wants. He wants it to be a little more red, not so much pink. Not so much pink, he says. More red. He's like fucking telling me. So he's mixing the paint in a little pint container, and he fucking drops it. Well, Mr. Robuchon wore straight black silk chef coat.
Black silk.
You know, with his fucking
boy.
Purple insignia of his name on his thing, with the MOF collar. and the fucking
respect,
the
dog.
Prada shoes and the fucking black slacks, crispy, ironed, like perfect. And the fucking paint, bro, just splatters all over his coat, his whole chest, right? And I'm just like, God, thank God that wasn't me, you know? And then fucking, he turns around, he looks at the chef, and then Chef Claude looks at me and fucking slaps me and says, "What the fuck, la?" And he blames the shit on me. And I'm just like, motherfucker just threw me under the bus, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, like, you know?
I'm sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like, this fucking dude just threw me under the bus. So, like, whatever, I picked up the paintbrush and I fucking run to the back and I try to clean it up and whatever. So I didn't get fired that time, but, you know, it was intense.
This is the first day of your stage, or this is when you worked?
This was like the third day of my stage.
Okay.
You know?
So then, did you have to make any dishes?
I did.
Okay.
You
had to cook for the chef on your stage.
Yeah, I had to cook a chicken.
Yeah.
A whole chicken.
A whole chicken? They
Yeah.
just give you a whole chicken?
It
or
was,
did they give you...
it was like a guinea hen.
Got you.
Yeah.
Did they make you do a set with it, or did you just have to cook the bird?
I just had to show them I knew how to cook it.
Got you. And then, you know, service is obviously happening. How the fuck are you cooking this bird?
Oh, this happened like in the daytime, way before.
Okay,
service. Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, you get the job,
Yeah.
and then how do you leave Guy?
Robuchon.
You get the job at Robuchon, how do you
Yeah.
leave the other job? Or they already kind
Yeah,
of like, it's fine.
I had already left Mix. And,
Okay.
or I left Mix and whatever. I had already put my notice in. I already knew that the chef was putting a good word in for me. I just had to, I guess, do protocol or whatever it was. And I got hired on to the meat station. And there again, it was like, you know, you had the Violon station, which was just all meat pickups. And we were doing a 6 and a 16 course degustation menu only. So, you know what I mean? And the service was in French, and I had never had the opportunity to work in France or in a kitchen that had only done service in French. So that was a hurdle for me to learn.
For sure.
How
long did that take?
It took a solid 3 or 4 months for me to understand when the chef would fire something, what the name of it was, and what course number it was. You know what I mean?
Got you.
So I would take the menu and translate it to English because the menu was in French. I'd translate it to English and then write all the numbers on the courses that were our stations.
Uh-huh.
And we had probably 4, 5, 6 pickups, excluding the a la carte menu, which was a whole nother 3 or 4 pickups. Yeah, and you could get a fucking a la carte in the middle of.
Yeah, in the middle of your tasting.
Yeah, and
what are you cooking at this point? What proteins?
We're doing. It was only Kobe.
Okay.
A5 only. As all of our meat items were A5 Kobe. Veal, bone-in ribeye. Everything was sous vide. It was the first restaurant that I had been in where everything was sous vide.
So they must have had a fucking huge cryovac machine.
We had a big cryovac machine.
Butchery, all that.
Yeah. At Robuchon, at Ducasse, everything was done in the AM via sous vide and whatnot. And then at nighttime, if it was a steak that you cooked on the minute, then that's what you did. But if it was, if it was a veal chop or if it was a bone in something, they were cooking it to mid-rare via sous vide, and then you were picking it up in a circulator on your station and searing it, basting it, and then sending it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then and we had a butcher, a butcher shop there, fucking Mark, he was a crazy motherfucker from New Jersey. Like we hit it off. We partied a lot together at the Ducasse restaurant. But at Robuchon, we had our own butchers. The meat station has its own butcher room, and we had our own butcher. We had our own meat refrigerator where we aged all of our shit. And the seafood guys had their own butcher station, their own room, and their own walk-in. And then we had a walk-in for just vegetables, and then we had a walk-in that was just the freezer. And then the garde manger guys are the only guys that really had to work out of the walk-in and work on their station.
Yeah.
All of us had, we would sit in the butcher room all day and butcher and tie and truss and,
Gotcha.
and so on and so forth.
And then for the most part, meat, and especially in France, that shit sits out.
Yeah.
Temper the shit out of it and just sear it and go.
Yeah, so we're not worrying about entremetier at that point. We're making sauce, and we're fabricating meat, and we're sous vide meat, and we're doing everything that needed to be done with all of the meat dishes.
Mm-hmm.
Entremet did all of the vegetable pickups. Seafood did only seafood, and Entremet did all the veg pickup for seafood. Garde they did everything from start to finish, plus the bouche. And Garde had like 3 or 4 guys on it. At that time, Matthew Kirkley was the sous chef on the Garde station.
No fucking way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so it was me, Matt. And I can't remember the other 2 guys' names at this point. But anyways, they're all, one's in San Diego. The name will come to me in a second. But he's in San Diego. He's got his own restaurants.
Yeah.
And then another guy went back to Europe.
So Garde fish, meat, entremet.
Yep.
Anything else?
That was it.
Okay.
It was 4
Plus
stations.
Your porters and all that.
Yep. Yep. It was 4 stations, but each station had 4 guys.
4 guys. Got it.
4 guys.
So Comey, CDP.
Yep.
Sous,
exactly.
and then who was the 4th?
It was just kind of like
another
Comey
gotcha,
or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how every station ran. So
now, I've never worked in that dynamic before. Do you cross paths with the other station?
Absolutely, because every pickup, everyone is adding to it.
Okay.
Right? So every time they call off a veal pickup, right? Entremet is picking the veg up.
Yeah.
And passing the veg over to the chef.
Okay.
And I'm passing the meat to the chef.
So you guys gotta communicate at
we
the
gotta
same
be
time.
on the same fucking time.
I'm sure it happened a lot of times where the veg was up first or the meat was up first.
Yeah. Now you're holding the meat down, or he's holding the veg down in the low belly oven.
Start to loading each other a little bit.
Yeah, but it's like after the chef would call it, then we would converse.
Yeah.
Okay, what, is it 5? Is it 4? Is it 3? What is it? You know what I mean? We would converse, and then we fucking made sure we were off.
Was it one long line, or was it
No, it was an island.
It was an island.
It was an island with 3 planches in the middle, and then on each corner was a 2-burner induction.
Got you. So you could be cooking a piece of meat here, and the fish guy's like over on the other side cooking a piece of fish.
So we were shoulder to shoulder. Seafood, fish, and meat were shoulder to shoulder. Entremetier was on the other side of the island, and Garde was on the other side of the island. So we kind of all looked at each other.
Gotcha.
It was the first kitchen that I worked in where like we all knew our purpose around one island.
Got you.
You know, and then we would turn around from the island, and we had these back stations that we all worked at up against the walls, but we all ended up back at the island to converse about where and when and what.
Yeah.
And that was like the one experience that made me realize that like this is a 100% team effort.
Yeah.
You know, so because you got to be on the same page as Entremetier in order to get a dish up. You know, and they were fucking spending hours and hours, you know, on vegetables and vegetable purees and vegetable juices.
Yeah.
And that's when I really learned how to take vegetables and make them delicious by utilizing their juice and utilizing, you know, different methods of cooking vegetables rather than just blanching a bunch of asparagus
exactly.
or whatever, you know what I mean? Cooking them in their own juices, you know, stuff like that.
Did you find yourself cooking seasonally, or because you were in a hotel where it was just everything?
We had a seasonal menu change once a season, because that's what, you know, that's the way it needs to be and was. But you know, you're in Las Vegas.
Yeah, man.
There wasn't a lot of farming happening. There was no farmers coming to the back door. You know, we're bringing lobsters in from Brittany. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you're probably getting everything from Europe.
Yeah, we're, you know, at one point, like, all of our butter was sherry butter.
Yeah.
It was all coming from Europe.
Because you told me about the potato flakes.
Yeah,
for the Robuchon.
yeah, they were sending us fucking potatoes from Jamin in the very beginning. You know, because they couldn't find a potato that was worthy enough for the pomme puree. You know, like it was just it was next level, man. And there was no expense, and there was no real like labor and food cost. You know, there was, but there wasn't. And it was just really all about excellence.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah.
Did you? And I'm sure you fed fucking famous people left and right.
Oh man, every night, you know what I mean? It was like, you know, this table's got this person on it, this person, you know,
Yeah.
we'd stay late because Celine Dion, like, whatever, like, you know, her
Just did her
concert
show.
took too long and she was hungry, so, like, whatever, you know,
Let's
like,
just
we were
stay
stay
open.
open for
I
her.
love that. It must have been
And,
breaking in the
yeah,
overtime.
you know, like, it was, yeah, the overtime was always there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, there was never a shortage of that because you just showed up.
Yeah,
You know?
and it's classical vegetable work, right? So there was a lot of turning veg, a lot of
Tons of it.
you know.
Peeling asparagus
Yeah.
with a paring knife, you know.
Now, did you guys have obviously commis in the morning? Right?
No.
No.
Well, we had 2 in the morning.
Got you. And they just did grunt work.
Well, they were putting the orders away,
Drop
and
stocks.
they were doing stuff like that.
Got you.
You know, but we didn't have a group of.
So it was really like you fucking
Yeah.
do this.
So the way that each station worked is they would usually send in one of their commis to start stuff.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So they usually be like, I don't know.
So he leaves right at the end of the service, basically,
or
a little bit before.
yeah, or right before service. You know,
Gotcha.
kind of like not really needed.
Yeah.
Type of guy. You know
This is
what I mean?
kind of the worst feeling in the world, but the best feeling.
Yeah.
'Cause you're like, I kind of want to stay, but then they start screaming and shit.
Yeah,
You're like,
fuck
no, I
them
gotta
up.
go, man. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So-
I was never given that job. You know,
Yeah.
I was always like, no, you're fucking staying in service.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was into that.
Yeah.
I wanted it. I wanted to be yelled at. I wanted to be, you know, I
Formed.
wanted to be formed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how long did you stay there?
I was there, I think 2 years.
What prompted your exodus? Did you stay on meat the whole time?
No, I got 86th.
Okay,
Yeah.
that means fired.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
what
got fucking
happened?
fired. Robuchon's in town. We're changing the menu. It's fall menu, and we're doing this whack fucking veal dish that it wasn't veal. It was kidney,
Mm-hmm.
beef kidney. It was terrible. It's disgusting. We were taking fucking perfect black truffles, squaring them up to a square, big,
Yeah.
like the size of your fucking hand, fist. Squaring them off, and then batoning them, and then larding them into this kidney, and then sous videing them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, like I just remember having to do that for fucking hours, and it was just like, what a waste! It was just
Yeah.
a waste of really great product. And they had a vision, but it just never panned out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so we're picking up. This time, I had this little mini digital camera, right? That was like the size of your wallet,
Like the rectangle
when they
ones.
first came out.
Yeah.
Like I was, you didn't have a camera phone necessarily. No one had a camera phone.
Yeah.
If you did, it took shitty pictures.
Yeah.
So you had like 12 megapixel like little slim Casio camera, whatever. So anyways, I would shoot everything. And because at that point I was a sous chef, I did not ever have backup. Right? I always wanted to have backup of what the CDC had shown me what to do. Right? Because it was Tomonari Danzaki, who was the CDC, Claude, who was the chef de cuisine, Bourgeois, who was the corporate, and then Mr. Robuchon. And so whenever there was a menu change, like there was no schedule. You just fucking made sure you were in the kitchen before Robuchon Robuchon showed up. If you were in the kitchen after him, it was like the chef looked at you and just said, "Go the fuck home. If you can't be here before chef, then you don't deserve to be here."
Yeah.
Basically, is what the mindset was,
for
right?
sure.
And it was, so you'd show up at 5, 6, 7 a.m.
Because you never know what time fucking Robuchon's
no,
gonna roll
you
through.
just never
What
fucking
time do you
know
roll
in
through?
his pimp ass black silk
Yeah.
chef coat. You know what I mean?
He's probably staying at the hotel.
Oh yeah, he's
balling.
He's walking down from the behind the restaurant is a part of the hotel that you don't know about unless you're a high roller.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Banchen.
Mm-hmm.
And you would never know what's there. There's no way to get to it from the outside. You don't pull up and a bad boy runs out. It just doesn't happen that way. You know what I mean? You're escorted there, right? And it's only high rollers. And I think there was like only 12 of these rooms. They were like homes. They're massive, right? And each one of them kind of had like a chef and a butler and everything else. Anyways, that's where he was staying. So you just showed up early, right? So anyway, the day comes along and we're doing this fucking dish, and I had been documenting the dish every day, every rendition, because we changed it multiple times.
Yeah.
We had changed it multiple times, and service comes along, right? Robuchon's at the pass.
Yeah.
Everything's going smooth, right? We had put out our first 2 courses, and then the next course came, and it's this fucking dish. So I plate the dish.
Mm-hmm.
I plate 2 of them, and I send both of them up. So Don Docky takes a dish, sauces the dish, and then puts the dish in the window. Robuchon looks at the dish and fucking loses it. Right? Starts yelling at Claude. Claude yells at Donzaki. Donzaki fucking comes over to my station and rips me. What the fuck? Like, in French / Japanese. He didn't speak English very well. So, we kind of already held a grudge because he never called me by my name. He didn't feel like he needed to.
Yeah.
And I had been there almost 2 years, and it felt like he should call me by my name at least.
Yeah.
If anything, call me by my name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyways, he pushes me out of the way, legitimately pushes me out of the way, and I'm a little bit pissed off. So I reach over his shoulder and I take the picture out of what he taught me, because now he's throwing me under the bus that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not following directions.
Yeah. But you're like, this is what you showed me.
No, this is what you wanted. Right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what you wanted. So I reach over his shoulder, I show him the picture. He fucking backslaps my hand, and my camera flies out of my hand, and smashes into a bunch of pieces on the floor. At that point, I was just kind of a little bit over him.
Yeah.
So I grabbed him by his collar, I swung him around, I slammed him into the wall, and I punched him.
Yeah.
And I punched him good.
Yeah.
I gave him a good lick. A good lick.
Is he still there? Is
No,
he still working
he's still with the Robuchon group. I think I don't know if he's in Hong Kong or where he's at, but he's been with Robuchon forever.
Okay.
And since then we had a conversation, and I told him, I knew I was wrong for what I did.
Yeah.
But I was at my breaking point. I let it get the best of me. But anyway, so then we fought in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And Robuchon's there, and
he's
everyone's
watching
there.
it.
Yeah, Robuchon's watching the whole fucking thing. And
inside he must have been like, this is fucking awesome.
I don't know what it was, but then Claude pulls me off of him, pulls me out. We kind of talk, and he tells me to just go.
Yeah.
We'll deal with this later. So I leave. I call my homie up, who's still my boy today, Gabe Ask, who's back in Sweden now. We work together at Robuchon and at Mix together, and I call him up. I'm like, bro, guess what? I just got fucking 86 from Robuchon. He's like, really? He's like, I'll pick you up at Diamond Sands. We're going to LA to see Modest Mouse. I was like, perfect. So he picks me up, and I go to LA. I went to LA for 4 days.
Yeah.
And we stayed at the Cadillac Motel, not hotel, Cadillac Motel, in Venice Beach, in this back alley, fucking shady hotel.
I'm sure.
Shady hotel right on the beach. And I had the time of my life. And we went to Modest Mouse concert, and we ate at Melisse, and we fucking balled out. And so I go back. I erased Robuchon from my mind for 4 days. So when I get back to Vegas, I call the chef. I'm like, all right, what's going on? I apologize. That was irresponsible of me. I owned up. I was like, that was terrible. I'm sorry. That was bad. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And he's like, come in. So I go in, Claude, and he's like, listen. He's like, I know, in not so many words, how Donzaki is, da 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 da. He's like, well, what you did was wrong. You did in front of Miss Robuchon. You can never work here again. I was like, all right, I get it. I understand. I accept that. I was like, well, am I fired? He's like, no, you're not fired, but you can't work in this kitchen anymore. I was like, all right, fuck, whatever. So Robuchon also oversaw a intercontinental style kitchen. It was half that would fucking make one of the high rollers a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or whatever the fuck, at 2 a.m. if you wanted it, right? That's just what they did. But they had really nice food there. Mm-hmm. And then we had another part of the kitchen that was this crazy Chinese chef, and he had like 3 cooks, all Chinese, no English, and they were there to tend to the Asian high rollers that were coming through and spending, 10, 15 million at the baccarat table.
Yeah.
Right? And wanted fucking, shark fin soup, and wanted all these crazy things that they were used to. Right? They had like 16 different fish tanks in the back of their kitchen with all live fish at all times.
Whoa.
Crazy crab, just crazy fish you never, as an American, you just never seen, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, these dudes were crazy, right? And, like, I ended up in that kitchen with those guys, and it was me and my boy Stu, who worked in Boca.
Yeah.
He was my roommate.
Yeah.
He fucking moved to Vegas, worked at Robuchon in the fine dining kitchen, and then that position opened up. It paid more, so he took it and left the fine dining. So I ended up working with him, my boy that I worked with in Boca. So it's me and him again in this kitchen by ourselves. You know what I mean? Like playing with food all day long, and waiting for someone to order a PB&J, and then or order a 6-course tasting menu. We have to come up with it off the cuff, and then hanging out with these crazy Chinese dudes that were just like, dude, they were nuts, and we had so much fun with them, and like neither one of us could really understand each other because they didn't speak really good English. Obviously, we weren't, we were speaking Chinese, Cantonese, whatever it is, and we just had a great time.
Yeah.
So until I left there, I worked in that kitchen.
Okay.
In the mansion.
How long?
It was probably about 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
And then what
Maybe
kind of
6 to 8 months, and then I got hit up by some headhunter in LA, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that job? And how did were you on a website or something, or did the headhunter just kind of find you through?
I don't know how he found me, honestly.
I guess a headhunter back in the day was actually a fucking headhunter.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he got word what happened with Don Zaki and
Probably.
like whatever. I don't know what happened, but I got hit up, and it was a random phone call. I was like, "Hey, this is Brad Metzger calling from Los Angeles, and we hear you're looking and you're out of a job and you're looking for something. You're looking for a chef job." I was like, "Yeah, who's this?" He's like, "Well, this. I'm in LA. I place people in different places throughout the country." And he's like, "I got this place in LA. It's in Topanga Canyon. They're looking for a chef. They're paying X. They'll pay for this. They'll pay for your housing. They pay for your phone. They'll pay for your transportation, and they'll move you out." I was like, "What? To Los Angeles?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was like, yeah, where, when, what? He's like, all right, come out, do a tasting or whatever. So, like, I'm hanging out with all the boys from Robuchon. They're all laughing. They're like, you're not going to do it. You're not leaving. Like, where are you going? You know what I mean? And I left like 2, 3 in the morning, drove to L.A., after a long dinner with them. And Marcel was my roommate at that point.
Marcel from Top Chef.
Yeah, Marcel and Rob Wing were, because Marcel was working there too.
Can we just tell everybody that he's actually a nice guy?
He is a nice guy.
Because fucking looking at him on Top Chef, I was like, who the fuck is this prick?
Yeah, people,
Yeah.
He,
they sure painted him out to be a fucking asshole.
He had he's a good guy. He had a hard time because he was at the forefront of young celebrity chef stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And he dealt with a lot of shit.
Yeah,
and
sure.
he dealt with a lot of people that were naysayers. And he's a little cocky.
Yeah.
And whatever.
What's he doing now?
I think he just had a kid. I don't know what
Good
he's
for
actually
him.
doing. But yeah. But I mean, the amount of times that we would be out at the clubs or at the bars, and like the amount of people that would just be like, "Oh my God, it's Marcel from Top Chef!" Like, the kid couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a couple times where like people would come to Robuchon to dine, and then want to do a tour of the kitchen, and they want to take a picture with Marcel and not with Chef.
Oh,
and
fuck.
the chef would fucking get pissed.
Of course.
And Marcel's just like,
I don't fucking tell him to
I don't
come
know
here.
what the fuck to say. Like,
So he was on Top Chef, and then he came back to work at Robuchon
he was working at Robuchon.
when the show came out.
I don't remember what happened. I don't know if he left for a little while and then came back. Or, because he was working and then he left and then he came back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what.
He must have been. I mean, he must have been.
Yeah,
talented
he was on
left and
he
come
was on
back.
the seafood. He was on the fish station.
Yeah.
His whole time there.
Cool.
Brian Redzikowski is the other chef that's in San Diego. I just remember his name.
Gotcha.
But anyways, also super talented, amazingly talented. Both his brothers are chefs too. Like he just can't like so
Whole
working next to
family
that
cooking,
guy.
yeah.
All of them were chefs, and but yeah, so fucking Marcel, crazy bastard. But we had a really good time. So we're all living in Diamond Sands apartments.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all the legit cooks
Yeah.
in Vegas at the time were living in this one apartment complex. And we were having fucking the best pool parties and the best barbecues, and like it was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was guys that were working there from Alex Estrada's place, like all these crazy chefs, all cooks were there. So it was like a little fraternity house.
Yeah, yeah.
Of, like cooks. But anyway, so yeah, so I cruised out to LA, and when I say this place was whacked out,
Yeah.
bro, it was next level.
What city we're talking?
We're talking about Topanga Canyon, which is in between Malibu and Pacific Palisades, which is on the PCH of Los Angeles.
Okay.
So it's Marina del Rey, Venice, Santa Monica, Pacific Palisades, Topanga, Malibu. So it's like, I don't know, maybe 50 miles of just beautiful Pacific Coast Highway. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
been there or not. I think you have.
I just actually did that this time around.
Yeah, so it's stunning, right? It's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So, so I drive out there, right? I get to LA when the sun's coming up on the 10 freeway. If you ever driven through LA to go to the Pacific Coast Highway, you know you come from the 10 freeway onto the Pacific Coast Highway, and boom, you're on the ocean.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So I get there sunrise, and I'm still a little drunk for sure.
Yeah.
And so I get up to Topanga, which is in the middle of the mountains. Like it's one of the canyons.
Yeah.
Right. So you get up there, and I get to this spot, and it's legitimately like an old, like hippie barrack. You know what I mean? It's like this place that was built in the '60s, and this woman has owned and run it since then. And all these people that were working there have all kind of been, Topanga transplants from all over the place, and people were just a little off.
Too much acid. Probably.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
A little
You
bit
said
too
that,
much
not me,
psychedelic
but yeah,
then.
pretty much. And they just been living up in the woods for so long that they were just like. Anyway, so I drive into this place, right, to do a tasting. Mind you, I'm coming from where I'm coming from, right? Brigard chef coat,
Yeah.
black slacks, shiny shoes,
Yeah.
black socks, fucking ready for war.
Yeah.
Always. Right? And I walk into this place, and it's like a couple shacks that have just been erected over the years, and like, you know what I mean? And there's this beautiful patio, and there's a stream, a creek, if you will, that's running alongside of it off the mountainside. It's all forest, and it's the birds are chirping. It's beautiful. Absolutely stunning. But I walk in, and like, the kitchen hasn't been touched since like the 60s. Right?
Oh.
It's just like none of the floors are like straight.
Yeah.
It's just like dirty. It's just it's just not what I thought I was going to be stepping into coming from where I came from. So anyways, I do a tasting for them, and like I could tell the food I was doing was not what they had expected.
Yeah.
Right? I was doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh my god, everything was like, this is delicious, this is amazing, this is delicious, this is amazing."
And then at the end, they're like, "This is not what we want."
No, at the end they were like, "When can you start?" And I was just like, "Wow, okay." Like it was my first like trying to do a tasting for someone to get a position out of it, right? And the lady that owned it, her name was Lucy, right? Everything was purple in the restaurant for some reason. I found out why.
Yeah.
The napkins were purple, and I just served her this, like, I don't even remember what it was, some crazy dish. And she's like, "Do me a favor," like in a very gentle voice, right? She said, "Close your eyes. Put your hand on this napkin." It was a lavender purple napkin,
Yeah.
right? And she said, "Close your eyes." So I'm going with her, right? Like, all right, let me just open up a little bit here, right? So I do it, right? And she's like, "Do you feel it?" It's like, "Feel what?" You know what I mean? I open my eyes. She's
Yeah.
got her eyes closed. She's holding my hand with my other hands on the napkin. She's like, "Do you feel it?" I'm like, "Feel what?" Right? And she's like, "The energy. Do you feel the energy, the positive energy from the seventh ray of the light spectrum or whatever she said?" And I'm just like, I open my eyes. I let go of her hand. I was like, "I'm sorry, Lucy, but I don't feel that. I don't feel that." Right? And she's like, "It's okay. You will one of these days. You'll feel it." Right? She's like, "Well, when can you start?" And she was super like happy, like, you know, energetic about me starting. And I was like, "Well, let's talk, you know, first. Like, this is, you know, I know this is what Brad said that, you know, but this is what I really want." At that point, I was like, "Wow, these people are crazy. Like, I'm not taking this job for what he offered me."
Yeah, let me just.
And I threw out a crazy number. And she's like, "We can do that. We can work with that." And I was just like, "Oh shit!"
Like, no fucking
I was
way.
like, "Really?" She's like,
Ask
"Yeah."
for more.
She's like, "Really?" And I was like, "And this, and you'll move me." And she's like, "Yeah, we'll take care of all of that."
Yeah.
And I was like, in a very like weird, mysterious, gentle way, right? It was just weird. So like, I go back to Vegas. I'm like, dude. I tell all my homies, I'm like, dude, I don't know what just happened to me, but it was weird. And I get a call from her, like, you know, a week later or whatever, and they're like, "Okay, you know, let us know. We'll schedule the movers with this, that, the other. Like, we'll get you a new phone. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. We already got here's a couple of the places we think that we can rent for you." And I was like, "Well, I already kind of found a place." And the place I found was like the most killer bachelor pad on the top of the mountain with the infinity pool. Like, you know what I mean? It was like crazy money. I was like, "Well, I was kind of hoping for this." And she was like, Okay, we can figure that out. Well, we can make that work. So like, they rented that place for me, like, you know what I mean? And like, I wasn't trying to take advantage of them, but I was just saying, listen, if I'm going to move here, this is what I want. This is what I want.
And then
And
they
if
weren't
you want me
saying no.
to, if you want me to come to this restaurant to change the amount of work that's going to change to change, this is what I want. You know, and they did all. So I ended up moving to Topanga Canyon and taking over the chef job at a restaurant called Inn of the Seventh Ray in Topanga Canyon. And I was there for less than a year. It just was...
Shit got weirder and weirder.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I got some pretty heavy stories.
Yeah.
I got some pretty crazy stories about that place.
Give us one.
I'll give you a good one. So the restaurant was a vegan restaurant.
Oh, okay.
But the highest selling item was the filet. Go figure. Right? Filet mignon. Right?
So you had a vegan restaurant, you had a filet mignon on the menu.
Yeah, the menu was all
right.
it was all crazy. But it was run by like 4 or 5 Mexican dudes. So I was like, all right, I fit in.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And they were into it, and we talked about what it was going to be. And those guys had also been there 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, they were like, finally, some fucking new
yeah,
thing.
you know.
Yeah.
And actually, the guy that I took the chef job over from, his name is Daniel Holtzman, who's also been very successful. Was in LA for a long time, and then moved to New York. Owned a place called the Meatball Shop or something like that. He's done really well for himself. And I called him. I was like, "Dude, is this real? Is this place real? Like, what is this place?" He's like, "It's real, but it's weird." He's like, "Just do it." And I remember having that conversation with him, and I was like, "Fuck it, I just went for it." Anyways, so it's a large part of the menu is vegan. Well, they had this dish on the menu that was a compressed soybean tofu thing. You couldn't read the ingredients because it was in Chinese.
I got you.
And it would come in like from this shady truck from Chinatown in downtown LA. The guy would deliver up, however, like 15, 20 cases at a time, and they would keep it in the freezer.
Were they ordering this, or did you have to order
No, they ordered it. They never told me where it came from. Right? And it was like, it looked like a half of a duck.
Yeah.
But it had like all of the indentations of bones and like the skin, and it was like a brownish color.
Yeah.
But it looked like a half roasted duck.
Yeah.
But it was like compressed soy tofu, whatever the fuck it was, right? And it was the worst tasting thing I've ever had. But that was like, they thought that was the most cutting edge, delicious thing. And like, they would dress it all up with they would do, every season they had a new set for it. You know what I mean? And I tried it, and I tried to make it good, and I tried to throw them a bone, you know what I mean? And I was trying to do all this really nice food, and all I was selling was that fucking shitty, not even food, right? And so, like, I get at one night, a customer sends it back, and they're like, "This is not good." Like no shit, it's not good, right? So that night, I took one of the dishwashers and one of the Mexican kids that was working there in the AM that I had made them stay fucking later, and I said to them, I was like, "This is what we're gonna fucking do." All of these, there was like 18 cases of this shit, and each one of them had like 12
of those
weird compressed tofu things inside of them, and we got them all. Okay, I was trying to get fired a little bit. We got them all, opened them up, put them into Cambros, went outside, and threw all of them into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I threw them all out. I threw them all in the creek, in the woods, fucking everywhere. We were just like hucking them, throwing them, like right. And I'm just like, fuck this, fuck this. Fuck? So the next day, I come in, and all of them are in Cambros on one of the tables in the kitchen.
Oh.
Right? I must have rolled in like around 10, 9, 3, 10.
Yeah.
Somebody had already been there. Somebody had already figured it out. Somebody had found them. Somebody had already picked them all up. And so I walk in, and Lucy's there, and she's like, "I don't know who would do such a thing, but somebody must have broke into the restaurant last night and threw all these rocks into the creek." And I was just like, "Oh my God, someone broke in last night?" You know what I mean? And I just went with it. I was like, I didn't lie to her. I just didn't admit to it. I was like, wow, that's terrible. You know? That was terrible.
So, how'd you leave? Did you get fired or did you work?
No, I got, it's funny. During the middle of a lunch brunch service, another restaurateur called the restaurant and asked to speak to me. So the GM comes over and she's like, "Such and such is on the phone for you." I'm like, "What?" So I'm at the Pass Expoing. I pick up the phone, and the guy's like, "Hey, this is Rodolfo Costella," Italian guy, right? He's like, "We hear you're looking for a job." I'm like, "What the fuck? You're calling me at my job to ask me if I want a job?"
Yeah.
Absolutely, I like your style. You know, I was like, absolutely, I like how you roll. Like, oh, you're no bullshit. So I was like, "Let's meet." I'm like, "I'm in the middle of service. Let me call you back." So I call him back. I go meet with him. Now, he's got a restaurant in Malibu on Zuma Beach, which is like this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful setting. Literally, like the only thing that separates you from the sand and the water is a like little one-lane street. So I go meet with him, and he tells me, you know, what they're doing, what they want to do, understands my pedigree, understands where I've been, wants to really change this restaurant. They want to do a fine dining thing. They want a bistro. They want a bar menu, and then they have events. I was like, all right, this is cool. The setting's cool. Restaurant's way nicer. These guys are restaurant guys. They've got like 6 restaurants.
They don't have that weird duck shit on.
Yeah, there's no weird duck shit. Like, there's no purple fucking curtains everywhere. Like, it was weird, bro. But yeah, so I took the job with them. I was like, all right, this is what I want. This is what I need, or whatever. And I started with them.
How'd you break the news to?
I didn't do it. I literally came in. I was like, guys, this isn't working for me. I was like, I'll give you 2 more weeks. If you need me to help find someone, I will. I was like, but I'm out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm out.
You know? How'd they take that?
They were
kind of used to it.
They were used to it. No one lasted there.
Yeah.
You know, and the poor guy, Salome was his name. He, like I said, he was the Mexican AM sous chef dude, who had been there forever.
Yeah.
You know, he was able to run the restaurant by himself anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't need a chef. You know what I mean?
They just kept hiring
chefs. You know what I mean? And the restaurant had been around for so long. I mean, I got a New York, an LA Times write-up when I was there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a terrible one, but I got one while I was there. You know what I mean? They don't. It's not a chef place. It's a romantic spot. You go there because it's a beautiful place, and that's that. So this next spot, you know, ended up becoming a pretty dope little landing pad for me.
Yeah.
And taught me how to run a business. And
Okay.
that's when I really got serious about understanding P&Ls, understanding food cost, understanding labor cost, understanding what it takes to run a profitable business.
Yeah.
Up until then, granted, I'm still super young at this time. I had no experience with actually reading a profit and loss statement, those types of things. And that place, I had a commission that was based on how well the restaurant was doing financially. So my motive was to make sure that we were in the black, and that's where I met my wife there, and I learned how to cook for 400 or 500 people at the same time, being able to run a kind of fine dining spot and a bistro spot, and understand it's okay to put fish and chips on a plate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, Ocetra. It doesn't have to be covered in alba truffle. It doesn't have to be that. And we came up with a bunch of really dope dishes there. And it was just really, really well executed, simple food. And we were going to the farmer's market. That was the one thing about the end of the 7th grade spot that I was introduced to, was going to the Santa Monica farmer's market. So when I took this new spot in Malibu, the Sunset, I brought that with me. I brought that, okay, every week we're going to go to the farmer's market twice a week, and we're going to buy everything from the farmer's market. You know what I mean? So, they bought us a truck, and we started going to the farmer's market, and the farmers on the way back up to Ojai, or I can't think of the cities north of Malibu at the moment, but on the way back they would stop and drop off whatever they didn't sell at the farmer's market. So we're buying, heirloom tomatoes, cheap, like all those types of things. Anyways, it was just a really dope experience.
Yeah. And then that's where you met your wife, you said. And what was she doing when you got there?
She was the events director.
Got you.
For the restaurant, and they were doing a high volume of weddings and parties and wrap parties and all these things, because it was such a beautiful place, right?
Yeah.
So they were doing a lot of that stuff. So when I came in there, the chef had quit or fired, or I don't know what happened. But she was working off of 2 chefs prior's catering menu. So all these other chefs were just having to adhere to whatever menu this other guy just made up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You were probably the first one that was like, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, listen. I was like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Call all of your events and tell all of them that the food that they ordered for their event is changing.
Yeah. I'm sure she looked at you like,
she looked
the
at,
fuck were you doing? Yeah.
That was our first real blowout.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not cooking this food. There's no recipes. There's nothing. All you're telling me is that, it's this with this and this. That's all you're telling me. You're not telling me anything else.
Yeah.
So how do I know they already had the tasting and what I'm going to give them is different? Are they going to be pissed off if I give them my, interpretation of what it is? So I was like, we're going to change it. We're changing it. I'll give you menus for everything. Give me a couple days. I gave her all new menus. I was like, this is what we're doing. Reschedule tastings for all these people, and I'll do a tasting personally. I'll go out, sit down with the customer, cook their food, tell them what they're going to do, and I'll do every one of them with you and for you. And she finally was like,
this guy's legit.
Yeah, he's legit.
Yeah.
And so I did that. We recreated all the catering menus, which there was a lot of them. It was like 10 or 11 of them. It was a lot.
Broken up into what?
Well, we had a $45 menu.
Okay.
We had a $65 menu.
Okay, gotcha.
We had a $95 menu. And then we had a bar mitzvah menu. Then we had all these different, we had all these different fucking menus. And I just streamlined them all down.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, if we're going to make money, because I was making a cut on the sales of food. I was like, I know I'm going to make money. And I was like, this is how we're going to do it. And I restructured the whole thing, and she restructured her whole thing, and together, we rebuilt that whole system.
Yeah.
And we worked really well together, and that's kind of how our relationship started.
Yeah.
But it all started by revamping this restaurant together.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't ours, but we treated it like it was ours.
And then you sort of knew, like, this person's passionate, I'm fucking passionate. You know, we're falling for each other. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when did you make the decision, like, it's time to fucking leave here and go, you know?
Yeah. We got serious about, like, becoming a thing probably about, like, a year or so into me working there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, she was seeing someone, I was seeing someone, and, you know, neither one of those things were working out, so we ended up, like, you know, going out a couple times and, like, really, you know, like, all right, you know, I dig you, you dig me. And so the whole time that we're, like, that started to happen, we started to talk about doing an event company together.
Yeah.
Because we were doing these crazy events. So we started talking about doing an event company that just did tasting menu dinners where her and I went to these really high-end houses and spots and did these tasting menus for these people. As I was already doing for our clientele at this restaurant was Sean Penn, was Pink, was De Niro, was, you know, all the A-list celebrities that are in the movie business. They fucking live in Malibu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're all coming down to the Sunset to sit at the bar and, you know, have a margarita and eat fish tacos. Because no one's bothering them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just a little small neighborhood spot, but it just happens to be on the ocean, the most beautiful spot.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, so, like, you know, I caught myself, like, cooking for, you know, well-known celebrities in their homes. I was like, wow, this would be a thing.
Yeah.
We could put a little business together where you and I go out and do these types of things. As we started brainstorming what that could look like, we came up with the name Tallulah. And then it was Tallulah, what was it called? Tut. I think we're calling it Tallulah under 20. So it was 20 guests and less. And we would come and do an event for you, super high-end.
Yeah.
And I would bring 2 or 3 people. She'd bring her front house staff.
Yeah.
We'd have someone on sommelier, and we would go do, you know, we wanted to go do these events, and that's what we're doing. So we got serious about moving on after a trip to New England, to Rhode Island. And that was
So you met her family.
that's when I met the fam, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I had never been north of New York.
That's fucking intense,
I had
bro.
fucking no idea what New Englanders were like.
Who the fuck is this guy over here?
Yeah, yeah. You've met my father-in-law. He's no
Mr.
joke.
Maurice.
Yeah, and so we come here, and like we come to Providence. We dine a couple spots, and you know, the whole time I'm here, I'm like, yo, there's no way I'm leaving Malibu. My fucking neighbor's Billy Bush.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm living in some dude's super high-end guest house, you know, on the beach. I'm like, I'm not leaving that to move to Providence.
Yeah.
Just not happening. So then we take a trip to Newport. And if you've ever been here, and if you've ever been to Newport, you know that bridge is a mesmerizing drive.
Yes, it is.
And it really, like, wow. And then we got into this little colonial town, which I had never seen, cobblestone, like, you know, streets and, like, old colonials. I'd never seen that before. And that was, like, really cool to see. And I was like, wow, you know, we could... And I saw, it might have been, the first time we came, might have been in the summertime. All the yachts were in the water.
Gotcha.
Right? And you drive down, and you see this. And you're like, man, people of mega wealth live in the town.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I was like, wow, we could really do what I want to do.
Yeah.
What I've trained my whole career to do, or if you will, you know? And so we go back, we find a place on Craigslist, we're looking to buy an income property, just so happens that apartment has a restaurant with it, and one thing led to another.
And you're like, fuck it, let's do
we
it.
fucking picked up and moved here and bought 464 Thames Street.
Gotcha. And that became Tallulah on Thames.
Yeah.
Now, how long from buying the building to getting it open?
I moved out here. I was out here for probably like 6 months, and she stayed there, working because she had a bunch of events that she needed to be a part of, and then train the new people and so on and so forth. I was able to train the new chef pretty quickly, and so I came here, you know, broke the kitchen down, broke the dining room down, redid the floors, painted. I was out here for a number of months before she came out here. It probably took me about 6 or 7 months to get the restaurant open.
Gotcha.
And when she came out here, we opened in 2010, May of 2010, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So May of 2010, you're opening this kitchen. It's a fairly small kitchen, so you need help. So
Yeah.
how did you find your first kind of cook?
Well, I sold it to myself. Like, tasting menu, tiny kitchen, 30 seats. This is the chef's dream.
Exactly.
I was like, I can do this by myself. Give me a dishwasher, I can get it out, right? Man, was I wrong? You know what I mean? Like the first couple nights of service, we opened during restaurant week. What a fucking nightmare that was. And I was able to hire on 2 guys. As we opened, realized I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself.
Yeah.
I hired on a guy named Todd and a guy named Anthony. Anthony's actually still in touch with. Todd, I'm not. Todd, I think you met.
Yeah. He works at does he work anywhere now?
I don't know where
Last
he
time I
works.
saw him at Salvation.
He might still
Cafe
be
in
there.
Newport.
He might still be there. I'm not
But
sure.
shout out to Anthony Guarneri.
Yeah.
Because he was the level head in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you were super hungry at the time. You knew what you wanted. And Todd, I felt like he was kind of over it.
Yeah.
But he was the first guy to ever be intense with me. Because I had never had that before. And I remember that I made a recipe for you. It was like, hey, copy down this recipe. The first time they're like, where's your notebook? And I'm like, what? They're like, you need a notebook. So I was like, oh, okay. I never had a notebook before, right? So I get my notebook.
I got a trapper keeper in the car.
He gives me the recipe, and I fucking weigh out it was a quarter cup. So I took a pint container, and I filled it up, to what I think a quarter cup was. And he basically just like slapped it out of my hands. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, weigh it out correctly. And that's the first time that I was like, wow, this is important to this man.
Yeah.
And he's not even the fucking chef here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that let me know that, like, if this guy's willing to fucking die and or get punched in the face, because you know what I'm saying, like, nobody ever talks to me like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't take that very well, and at that time I was kind of taken aback by it. But then I quickly learned that day. I was like, I guess this, I need to do this in order to, because I knew who Marco Pierre White was, and I was like, at some point, you need to learn hard lessons.
Yeah.
And I think if this is the guy that's going to teach me the hard lessons, let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
You worked with Anthony and Todd for how long before I showed up? It's like a year and a half.
It was probably at least a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was just us 3 on the line.
You were on meat.
Yeah.
Todd was garmage pastry,
Yeah.
which was fucking hard.
It was a hard station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that man could do it by himself was amazing.
Yeah, that was a lot.
And fucking Anthony was on entremet.
Anthony, all entremet for all the dishes.
Fish, meat,
and did pasta.
Yeah,
and
made all the pasta
did
and all
sauce. And I was fabricating all the meats, sous vide all the meats, doing
Plus
all the butchering.
B&L and fucking
plus
costing.
yeah,
and,
plus running the business.
yeah. So
and schedules and all the shit.
yeah. So what was what was the dream when you opened up Tallulah's? Was it like we're gonna fill this restaurant every night? Did you have a 5-year plan where you were like, I'm gonna run this for 5 years and I'm gonna fucking hand it off to somebody, open up another restaurant?
Yeah. No, we didn't have that kind of 5-year outlook. We knew that we wanted to come here and do simple bistro-ish food.
It was
approachable.
Yeah, it was approachable fine dining. It was like bistro plus.
Yeah.
That's what I felt it was.
And we knew we wanted to do that, but then we quickly realized that we weren't going to make it financially with that setup.
Yeah.
So we knew that our goal was to get to the 6 course, get to the 10 course, or get to the 12 course.
Yeah.
And keep people in their chairs for longer and make sure that their check averages were higher.
Mm-hmm.
To do less people would have them spend more when they were with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we always knew that was the goal. It was just so hard to really get there. So if I could rewind it a little bit to your first day, I would love to fucking talk about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because this is not about me. This is about you. Fucking little David Galati. I don't remember the month. I know it was the summertime. or peak summertime, like right before peak summertime.
Was it? I remember winter, but I could, I was smoking a lot of weed then, so I don't know.
Maybe it was spring.
Yeah, it was a little cold. I know I was wearing a hoodie.
Yeah, and pajama pants.
Yeah, for sure.
Fucking pajama pants. But anyway, so you show up, right? And I think you just showed up. You just showed up at the back door. And you got dreads to your ass. You got a hoodie on. You got pajama pants on. Probably like checkered Christmas pajama pants on.
Checkered green pajamas, baby.
Probably.
Wore one pair for all 4 years of
Flannel
college.
Pajama pants. And like, I don't even remember what shoes you were wearing, right? And so you come in, you're like, hey, my name is this, whatever. Are you guys hiring? I was like, who the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean? Like, meanwhile, like, I'm like super, like, everyone's wearing a chef coat. We're professionals here.
Yeah.
And I was like, the fuck is this guy? So anyways, I think that I actually, because you had the balls to just show up, I think I let you stay that day.
Well, I got a stage with you, and you were like...
I told you to come back.
You were like, you're not dressed for the occasion, obviously, so you need to fucking get some black pants, black socks.
Yeah, you came back. I remember you came back. Yeah. So that day, I remember you spent the day with us, and I could tell you were green in some ways, right? And I could tell you were nervous. You were shaking. But you have that shaky.
I already have it. Yeah, I still have it to this day.
You're shaky.
That's just what it was. Yeah.
And so I remember, I always was a big fan of trying to give someone a not a mystery basket, but a chance to show themselves, a chance to show me how they like to cook, and. Since everything was timed in the kitchen, I always felt that it was important for people to cook in a timely fashion. And so I would time them, just as I timed you, I think.
They gave me 30 minutes.
Yeah, and you fucking made risotto. And you split the risotto like fucking 6 times.
Oh, yeah, you watched the whole fucking thing. That was the worst part about it. It's like, cook me this thing, and then you just watched me. I was like, fuck.
And, yeah, I remember Anthony saying to you, like, don't cook risotto.
Yeah, he did.
Or something like that.
He did say that. He's like, are you sure? And I was like,
yeah, I'm going to cook risotto. I'm going to cook risotto, which is a very humble dish.
Yeah,
right?
it is, yeah.
But it's easy to fuck up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you split the risotto probably 6 or 7 times, meaning, like, got it too hot, too much butter, and it splits.
A little bit more water.
A little more water. And then bring it back, and then add more butter, and then keep cooking it, right? And then like, okay, it's back, and then all of a sudden, then you turn around, you're doing something else, you turn around, it's fucking split again, right? Like I could tell, like you wanted it so bad, but you just had the technique yet,
yeah,
right? I knew that. So we sat down afterwards, and I was like, that was definitely the worst dish I've ever eaten in my life. And you were like, wow, really? I was like, yeah, pretty much fucking terrible, unedible.
That was the first time that I've had serious review from someone that was like, that sucked. Because you cook for your parents, like, that's great. I was like, come on.
Yeah, and I was just like, this kid's terrible. This kid sucks. Like, there's no way. Like, we can't even use him.
Yeah.
And I think at that time I'd already had a conversation with Todd maybe or whatever that he was leaving. So I was like, all right, like let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I said to you, I was like, listen, I'll hire you, but the only way I'm going to hire you is if you cut your hair. I was like, that fucking hair is too much.
Yeah, it's got to go.
Yeah. So you left, and I was for sure, because you had been talking about, I've been growing this hair all 4 years of culinary school. Like, you were proud of it. And I appreciate your hair now.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm into it. But I knew, I was like, this kid's not fucking coming back.
Yeah.
There's no way he's going to cut 4 years of dreadlocks off of his head.
Yeah.
And you fucking showed up the next day in chef whites with a notebook, black pants, fucking cook shoes, black socks, and a bald ass head.
Yeah. My head hadn't seen the sun in like...
It was all wrinkly, I remember.
Yeah, it was wrinkly from twisting the dreadlocks.
And I was just like... And one of the servers says, he fucking actually did it, Remy. He actually did it. I was like, God damn it, I gotta hire this fucking kid. You know? And he walked in, and I was like, dude, you cut your hair? He's like, yeah, I want this. And I was like, get serious.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's go for it. Let's do it. And I think that was it was either in 12. I think you started in 12.
Yeah.
Beginning
2012, yeah. Beginning of 12.
Yep. And then the rest is history. You know?
Well, actually, I worked the summer of 11 because I graduated that year.
It was
you
11.
let me have my graduation, yeah. And then
you came with your mom.
no, I didn't come to you. That was Ben. I just was like, hey, I got to do this graduation shit.
That's right.
You're like, great, fine. I was working
yeah.
at Trattoria still.
Yeah, that's
I had
right.
like 4 days.
Right.
I did 2 days, and I started prepping the tacos, the taco cart. Which, you know, I know now why you started it, but at the, you know, when they told me like, hey, you got to prep these tacos, I'm like, is this a test to see if I'm good enough to cook the fucking fine dining foods? I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get good at this, and then, you know, hopefully. And I remember the first day was like I showed up at 7, and you're like, we got to get on the road by 9:30. You got to get beans cooked, salsa made, all that. And I fucking drained the liquid from the beans, and that was when you were like, the liquid has flavor too. You're like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I just ended up adding water, and I made really watery beans. So you like had to smash them all and refry them and like make them good. And I was like, all right. But I remember that day was like super stressful because you were going to taco cart all fucking day.
Yeah.
You know, Todd was prepping the meat at that point, and then you were coming back working service, and like, you know.
Yeah, so we realized that we needed another stream of revenue, so we started the mobile taco.
Yeah, mobile taco cart at the farmer's market
thing at the farmer's market's doing.
Yeah.
Carne asada, doing carnitas, doing like the shit I grew up with.
Yeah.
Because there was none of it around. So,
exactly.
You know, and that took off. But yeah, man, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have come through, you know, Tallulah and Thames that would get their shit crushed.
Yeah.
On a 14-hour day, and then close down, and then we would start
prepping the fucking tacos again.
The fucking carne asada.
There was a few times, dude, where I would, because I was in charge of it, right? I'd leave, go home, smoke weed, take a shower, hang out for 2 hours, about to lay my head to rest at 3 a.m., and then I realized you didn't fucking prep the pork. And you lived fucking on the 3rd floor. So I would sneak back in the middle of the night and like open everything super quietly, you know, open all the windows so I didn't have to turn on the hood, and like sear the meat and get it in the fucking oven and basically leave it like I never even was there. But I remember a couple times I had to sneak back in for just forgetting.
That's
you know, it's
hilarious.
just like, you know, you're not organized.
No.
When I got there, I was not organized at all. You're like, you need a notebook. I was like, oh yeah, you need a notebook. And then, you know, so... But I remember the first day on the line, it was the first time when anybody had actually put their hands on me and were like, hey, you need to move like this. Like, put your fucking elbow in and like hold the saute pan with this hand. Your towel never touches the table. And like there was testaments and there was rules.
Yeah.
And there was no rules where I came from. So I liked it because I was like, you know, I had lived in college for 4 years. There was 4 years of no rules, free for all, did whatever I want. You know what I mean? And it was form again. And I was like, wow, like someone's fucking, you know, reprimanding me like my fucking mom would. You know what I mean? Like this person cares about what they do.
Yeah.
You know, so it was definitely a cool environment to be in, and Ben Bloom helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
Anthony Guarnieri. I actually told the story the other day of how I got arrested. I got so we finished up a night at Tallulah's. I'm with Ben. I'm giving him a ride back and forth. We're commuting. It's winter.
From Providence to Newport, which is
and at this point,
drive.
You didn't know this, but I was hustling a lot of weed.
Yeah.
And I had gotten robbed a couple years earlier, and I was still paranoid about it. So I would drive to Newport, Rhode Island with these pounds of weed in my trunk. And because I figured, I was like, well, if they're close to me and Newport's safe, nothing's going to happen. But if I let them in Providence, I was afraid somebody's going to break in and take them, and like that's all my money. Yeah. That was before I started, like, I'm not doing this anymore because I got to cook now, you know? And so I leave your place after we had some shift drinks, and I'm fucking smoking a joint. I'm with Ben, who's religious, doesn't do any of that. I fucking get pulled over on the Jamestown Bridge for my plate light being out. And as soon as they open the window, they're like, smells like weed. Step out of the car. And the ladies ask, Ben, get out of the car. And I'm like, he's religious. He doesn't do anything. Trust me, he's fine. Cops leave him alone. And then she's like, do you have anything in the car? Searches the whole fucking car. And then underneath my driver's seat, I had 3 joints rolled, like ready to go. Because that's the way, like,
of course.
The worst part about smoking weed in an illegal state is having to roll it and, like, stop. Like, where are you going to roll it? Where are you going to, So I would roll them at home and have them already ready to go. Yeah. Pre-rolls. And so she found them, and then she fucking was like, I thought you didn't have anything in your car. And then I lifted my hands from the trunk to be like, to argue with her, basically. Like, I'm not lying to you, I just had them there from before. Fucking dude comes from behind me, slams me on the car. They flap the cuffs on me and take me. And I'm like, the last thing, I was like, I plead to you, please let Ben Bloom take my car. Don't impound the car. Because if they would have impounded it, they would have found a fucking pound. And then he was like, they let him take the car. So I took the car, and I got arrested in Jamestown. I had work the next day with you, and that was like maybe my 5th month. And I was like, I can't fuck this up. Like, I need to make it to work. So I had the keys from Tortorius and Potico still, because I used to work breakfast. I walked there from the police station in Jamestown, fucking slept on the pass all night, like turned the burners on, slept on the pass, and then the next morning at 7, took the bus over to Newport, rented a hotel room, stopped at Walmart, got some socks, some black pants, and fucking, and was basically ready to go. And I walked to work, and I was like, Chef, I got arrested. And I remember that you just laughed. You were like, that happens. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not supposed to be in trouble for this. You know what I mean? And so it was fucking awesome. And I was like, all right, I guess it isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But
you always showed up.
For sure. I mean, that was my thing. It was like, no matter what, you show up. You don't have an arm, you show up.
Yeah.
If you say you're going to be there, you have to
be there.
You only got your balls in your word.
Yeah.
Scarface.
You've always, true. And you've always been that guy.
Fuck yeah.
Why I've always respected you. You showed up the next day with a bald head.
And then, do you remember the whole Charlie situation?
Oh,
because for a long time I was like, hey, you got this guy Charlie Apple, he's great, and you're like, what the fuck is Charlie Apple? I don't know about that.
He's got a fruit for last
man, I don't know about that. So then we're like hard pressed for a meat cook. Like, we need one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me call my boy Charlie. He's on his way out of fucking Newport to go
to New York.
Yeah, basically to go get some other job.
I remember that.
And I was like, stay here and be the meat cook. And he fucking came, staged, and he became the meat cook. And then later on, he had a garden with you and Jeff. He definitely...
I remember sitting down with him and him being like, well, I just said no to a job with Jean-Georges, and because I didn't align with my ethos and this, that, the other. Charles, I love Charlie. He just thinks about shit like we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And shout out to you, Charlie. You're my boy. So when he came on, I had all these grand goals of getting to the tasting menu, getting back to the degustation style menu, getting back to the service I wanted to be a part of. And we were close, you know what I mean? I think we were doing maybe a 3-course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe we did
a 3 and a 5.
Or 3 and a 5. We had a 5-course. And I knew I wanted more. I knew I wanted to get to the 10 and the 12, or the 9 and the 12. And that was always in the back of my head. And then that's when we met Jeff. I think Jeff had already kind of started coming around.
Yeah.
Jeff tried to fucking sell me a bunch of garlic one day. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, I remember.
Trying to sell me garlic.
Because he come in his tank top with his veins
tank top
all out. Hey, what's going on? How are you? I got some
on his scooter. Fucking shout out to Jeff. I love you, man. Shout out to Jeff. Oh, man. And, so, that garlic relationship turned into an open door of I'll grow whatever the fuck you guys want.
Yeah.
And that's when we started to sit down together. And I remember Charlie being like, yo, have you ever had this? I mean, some of the stuff I had never really heard of, and it was cool to hear someone that was that interested in it. And I remember being like, well, Charlie, I was like, why don't we we've got a driveway outside, we got to walk in.
Yeah.
We got sun. let's
do
spend a little bit of money, and we didn't have any money. I was like, let's spend what we can and fucking buy what we can, and then Jeff inspired us, I think, to do it ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Do what we could ourselves.
He definitely did.
You know,
he was a one-man gang.
He was a one-man show.
He did his whole farm. He fucking brought it. Like, he delivered it.
It was always right at service.
Staff meal.
But it always showed up.
Yeah.
He knew when to show up.
Yeah, for sure.
For staff meal. He knew
sure.
it was fucking Jeff. I love
him. Oh, fucking Jeff.
But yeah, man, he was showing up with red vein sorrel before it was a thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He was showing up with amaranth. He was showing up with all these nasturtiums, like all these varietals, and this was early on, I think.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Because from Sid Wainer, you ordered nasturtiums. They give you 12 each for $34.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
And you're like,
yeah, and I remember either seeing a documentary or whatever on David Kench's relationship with Apple something farm. I can't think of the name of it, and I was just like, that would be amazing if we could have that relationship. And Jeff was our guy.
Yeah, he was.
Big Black Dog Farm was
was
our go-to, and I know he had to deal with a bunch of not so nice people, like trying to sell them his product in town, and I felt like we were always the restaurant that, like, we'll buy it. If you bring it, we'll buy it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You know what I mean?
Even if it's shitty, we just did it at a, like...
And, and we bought it, and we always made use of it. But yeah, man, that time it was... at that time we were opening... we were pushing the taco game really hard. We were doing a bunch of festivals. We were thinking about opening our own taco shop. We were trying to get away from the mobile game a little bit.
Yeah.
And you and Charlie were running the kitchen. Annabelle was crushing it. Annabelle was, you know what I mean? Like, she was a godsend.
Yeah, she really was.
And sweetest person I've ever met. I think I put her through the ringer.
Oh, yeah. I was definitely an asshole to her, too.
Yeah.
For sure.
But, as I think everyone had the perception that the goal is to serve excellence, in some way,
for sure,
shape or form, and I was fortunate enough that all of you guys that came through had the same drive that I had, saw what I was doing, and were able to take the reins and hold it down as I was trying to keep the restaurant
and move on to other things as well.
Yeah, and Kel and I were trying to keep the bills paid, trying to make sure payroll was taken care of, and trying to make sure that we had another revenue stream when December came.
Yeah.
Because once December came...
You'd be doing 2 covers a night.
Yeah, there was a couple nights when you ask yourself, do we suck?
Yeah.
Is it because we suck? Or is it because, there's 12 inches of snow tonight.
Yeah, and there's 10 people in town and nobody wants to come eat.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, like, there was a lot of mental game with dealing with that. You know what I mean? When you're in a seasonal place, it pulls you down a little bit.
For sure.
But you guys all when you and Charlie moved to the island and shacked up, down the street.
Yeah.
I felt you guys lived at the restaurant.
We did. I think me and him talked, and we were like, look, if we're gonna take this shit seriously, and you're gonna start this farm, and let's just go all in, get an apartment together, and fucking go. And we found an apartment like 5 streets down from where the restaurant was, 5-minute walk to work.
Yep.
And it was great. Fucking
yeah. I mean, I definitely remember being very uneasy with the thought of walking away from not butchering everything, not cooking every meat, not making every pasta, not making the sauce, all the sauces. Like, I was very reluctant to pass that off because I knew that was the money spot.
That was the bread and butter.
What I mean? And Charlie was able to kind of, I remember having a conversation with you, being like, listen, like, you've been here this long. I think you're almost there.
But you're not quite there.
But you're not fully there yet. And you say he is, so let's give him a shot.
Yeah. This was one of those times in my life where I was like, put your fucking ego behind you.
Yep.
I know you've been here longer, but Charlie's a better cook than you.
Yep.
Let him cook the fucking meat. Learn from him. Watch him.
Yep.
and then you'll get your chance.
Yeah.
You know?
And he was methodical about it.
Oh,
he was
really
able to
was.
understand my system.
Yeah.
He understood when we were dropping fucking meat into the circulator and when to pull it, when to steer it, when to hold it, you know, which pants to pull down, when to pull them, when to start veg, when to not.
When to plate.
When to plate.
Yeah, because we would plate everything. You were basically went on Garmager after that.
Yeah.
It was you and Annabelle on there, and me and him on the hotline.
Yeah.
And I remember we would set the timers. It'd be like, all right, when are we going up on this? 4 minutes? Set a 4-minute timer counting down, and then basically if the plates weren't pulled when that bell went off, we were fucked.
Yeah.
You know? And so we learned to work together really well during that time. We lived together. We probably hated each other for at least, you know, a couple days out of the month.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we definitely grew, and I think that he was also humbled when he got to veg. Because up until that point, he's a great meat cook, great pasta maker, great cook overall, but he never made a vegetable puree.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking of that when he had like a struggle making a vegetable puree, and I was like, okay, like it's not all about like no matter what your skill is, you still don't know something.
Yep.
You know, there's always something to learn.
Yep.
And I remember that day, and I was like, wow, like, you know, I look up to this guy. This guy, like, was my first sous chef. He gave me my first kitchen job.
Yep.
And he can make a veg puree that I've been, you know, making however long.
Yep.
And it was just like, okay, like, we're good. We're right where we need to be.
No, you
know?
Yeah, you guys humbled me, man.
Yeah.
I learned a lot with you guys. You guys, you know, taught me a lot about me, who I am, what I can handle, and what kind of leader I needed to be in order to make sure that you guys had what you need.
Yeah. When
I needed to go do a farmer's market, you know, leave 8 in the morning, not come back until 3, run up, take a shower,
come downstairs,
check in with everybody,
Yep.
do a couple quick things, and then boom,
line up, and
go right into service.
Yep.
Like that was, you know, God bless my wife. I mean, her and I did that for a number of years, just her and myself.
Yeah.
And Demos. You know what I mean? And Hector. Like, you know, like it was a struggle, man. And Kel and I at that time, like we weren't paying ourselves.
Yeah.
We weren't able to. You know what I mean? We were, you know, like just it was
scraping,
it was tough times
for sure.
And we were considered the best restaurant, you know.
Exactly.
And
it was a very like crazy juxtaposition. It was like, those guys are great, and that's the fine dining restaurant in Newport, because there wasn't any other one. That was it.
No, and we weren't even fully fine dining.
Exactly.
Yet, you know what I mean?
But we were the ones that were doing it the best.
Yeah.
And that inspired other restaurants to open. TSK opened after that.
Yeah.
And these guys came from where did those guys come from? I believe it was
they
Vegas.
Both,
Vegas and LA?
No, they both came from New York.
Okay, gotcha.
One of them lived in, Tyler lived in and grew up in Newport, and they both went to New York, or both were in New York, and worked with, I can't remember who, but definitely some big name guys, and then came back here and were inspired by what we were doing.
Yeah, I was like, this is possible here.
And,
you know?
and they opened down the street from us, and we supported each other a lot, and
Christmas parties together.
Oh my God, those were amazing.
Baseball games in the rain.
Yeah,
all kinds of shit, dude. We had
taking
a lot of
over
fun.
Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, like those were good times.
Man.
You know, those were all solid times.
So then, you know, Charlie leaves. He goes, takes a job in what was it? Maryland
yep.
as a chef. I'm sort of in transition too, because I think we had talked a lot about once you're the best at the place, you need to go.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you always had a thing where it's like, I don't want to keep you here for longer than you need to be. And it was a hard thing because it's easy to become comfortable. Be like, I'm just going to work here forever, whatever, you know. And then I remember my buddy Tyler went to work at the French Laundry, and I was like, hey, what do you think about that? And I'm like, I think that's baller. It's like, if you got an opportunity, bro, take it. And I said, all right, let me do it. And then that's when I went over there to the restaurant in Riverwood and did what I did. But after that, what happened with you?
When you were going there, I was under the mindset that you were going to be going to the laundry. Mm-hmm. And then I think you staged there.
No, never did. Basically, I hung out with them.
Okay.
I hung out with the people, and I got this vibe like...
Well, you called me, and you're like, this is not my vibe.
Yeah, no.
And you're like, well, what do you think about the restaurant in Meadow? I was like...
The only other 3-star.
Like, what do you think? I remember you saying to me, Like, well, what do you think I should do? I was like, well, you should fucking do what you do. You should just show up at the back door
Yeah.
and start working.
Yeah.
And don't let the chef fucking turn you away.
Yeah.
Just like you did here.
Yeah.
And I remember you fucking called me and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to go tomorrow. I was like, do it.
Yeah, I wasn't
Make
even
sure you have a
planning.
fucking sharp knife.
Yeah, that's what he told me. So I was like, all right, sharp knife, press chef coat, black socks, black shoes, everything ready to go. Got the job, but that's, my story. What happened after we all left? You have Andrew Cohen at this point. You got Justice, Deputy, who's happily married in Vegas. Congratulations.
He's at
fucking
Robuchon
Justice.
still, I think.
Is he?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And then, who else was there? Demas, obviously.
Bree.
Bree, right?
Bree was there.
So it was the first time that you kind of got. Did Annabelle train Bree, or did Bree come after? I feel like Bree came way after.
Bree trained. I'm sorry. Annabelle trained Cassie.
Got you.
Yeah.
And then Cassie, that's the focaccia bread girl, right?
Yeah.
I remember that shit was bomb.
Cassie was really a huge turning point for us in pastry.
Yeah.
Annabelle gave us soul.
Yeah, for sure.
And she brought a level of execution that was just so comforting.
Yeah.
And I was trying to teach her refinement.
Yeah.
And she understood it and she got it, you know what I mean? And like like those sticky toffee puddings and stuff like that. Like,
dude, it's so good.
Like they were delicious.
The Sunday
what I mean?
suppers, man.
Yeah,
those were classic.
We were doing those Sunday suppers things. I mean, we did burgers. I mean, we did, if you think back, man, we did whatever the fuck it took to make sure we could make payroll.
Yeah.
Every week. And we were doing Sunday suppers, we were doing burger nights, we were doing whatever it took.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then so Cassie took that position, and Cassie really, I think Cassie came from Gracie's, and she had been working for Melissa, who's obviously a really well-rounded
badass,
pastry chef. So she understood everything I didn't understand, and then I wanted her to visually understand what I wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
So we would draw the food and then be like, okay, this is what I want it to look like. Just, I don't know how to fucking do it.
Yeah.
You do it.
Yeah.
And she took the bull by the horns and did it. And Bree, she was just an all-around badass. Kind of in the beginning, I could tell that she was confident in her ability. And she was able to just kind of, move right in and take over, the entremetier station and so forth. Ben had moved on as well.
Yeah.
Ben moved on and did some stuff in Europe and kind of moved around. And Ben ran that station for a long time by himself too. And he was really, really solid at that. And then Andrew came along, and we had a couple other really solid people that came through there.
Dan D'Amico.
Dan was the last to close the restaurant down.
Yeah.
And just like you, we had those conversations on multiple occasions of like, if you want to be the best, you got to surround yourself with the best people. And he ended up at Manresa. And at one point, you were at a 3-star. Dan was at a 3-star. Justice was at a 3-star. Bree was at a 1 or 2-star. Andrew was at a 3-star. All you guys left my kitchen to go work at 3-star spots. And that, to me, was the biggest accomplishment in our tenure as a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I knew that you guys aspired to get there, and you got there because of whether it was tough love or not. You got to understand what it took to go and be in those kitchens and thrive in those kitchens and be successful in those kitchens.
Well, the thing that we all saw was your leadership by doing. You were just doing it, and I think the most definitive moment that ever happened was when you broke your leg, your tibula and your fibula.
Oh,
right.
Fuck.
That morning you picked asparagus, and we got strawberries from. Fuck is that farm over by the beaches? I forget what the name of it is. Sweetberry. Yeah, Sweetberry Farms. And you break your leg, you break your knee, right, and then or your ankle, and then fucking that night, like we run service, and that was important to me because oh shit, now we're running service. You know, we got to show Kellyanne that we can fucking do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the testing ground for the next 3 months of your rehabilitation. So I made sure we had a good service. We did. And I remember you coming through the gate, and you're like, hey, Kellyanne told me you guys had good service. All right, let's talk about tomorrow. And I'm like, we're just at the hospital? Like, we're fucking, you know what I mean? But you were ready to get back in it. And then the next day, you were on the hotline plating fucking food on your brace. And that's when we all knew. We were like, there's no fucking complaining anymore about being tired about anything because this man broke his leg and here he is right next to me right now. So anything that was bothering anybody was like nominal compared to that. And we were like, we're going to fucking, you know, nail it down and fucking do what he needs us to do to make sure that this restaurant fucking survives.
That was crazy.
You know?
Yeah, you guys rose to the occasion. Like,
I
was blown away on how much you guys just took the bull by the horns and went with it.
Yeah,
and
it was almost like a godsend for you too, because it's like you had to let us.
Yeah,
do
I
it.
never
you
let
had
go.
to.
I had never let go.
Yeah,
you know.
Like I remember you put your leg up on the pass, and you know, and like a little bit far down, and just like help me turn turnips and apples and shit, you know. And I was like, he's here doing whatever he can to fucking make sure his restaurant lives. When did you have to make the hard decision to close Tallulah's?
Man, that was a rough one, you know. I think Kelly and I, we just looked back at like all of the good times that we had created or been a part of, coming up to that point. And, we realized that in order for us, number one, as a couple, to stay on like a positive level, like something needed to go. You know what I mean? And we knew that it wasn't going to be us, so it had to be the diva, the restaurant. You know what I mean? So we, I think together we decided that in order for us to maintain the relationship and the love that we had for each other, that we had to let it go.
Yeah.
Not because it was a failure or it was failing, because it was slowly draining us of our life. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
It's like a slow drip. And I say that not in a negative way at all, because we had some amazing moments in that restaurant, and providing for people and creating a experience for people was the goal. And we felt like we accomplished that. And at that point, when you feel like you've accomplished something, as you know, you ask yourself, what more can we accomplish here? And there's always something, right? We knew we're never going to get rated by a Michelin guide or a bib or anything like that. You know what I mean? A couple times that we have reached out to, marketing firms, they kind of laughed at us. They're like, no one's coming to Newport. Newport's not a food town. Like, you guys are wasting your time. You guys are wasting your money.
Yeah.
So like thinking about all those things, it's like, okay, what are we really doing this for?
Yeah.
We know that we love it. We know that we're good at it. We know that we can do it. But it's draining us of our personal life, and financially, it was burdensome.
Yeah.
It was tough to get through. 4 or 5 months of winter.
Yeah. And
then have to go full
ramp
speed.
it up. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then get rid of the staff, and then bring them all back, and then try to retrain everybody. So, I think at the core, when we decided to let go, it was because the Taqueria was thriving. We knew that we wanted to have kids, and we knew that the only way to really make that happen was to just let the restaurant go. So it was a tough decision, but it was, I think, for us, it was the best decision that we've made as a couple. Besides opening the place, you know what I mean, was closing it. And like I said, at that point, we had 5 or 6 people at 3 Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah.
We felt like Dylan had gone to the laundry. So we had people in front of the house and back of the house that came from training with us that were doing really great things. And we said, okay, like we accomplished what we set out to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The accolades and all the awards and all the crap. You know what I mean? It's just stuff. And at the core, like, those things all hold like moments in time, but that's not what we were doing it for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were doing it because we love doing it. We still love doing it. Our goal is to do something again. But we step back and realize that we've got a business that is doing amazing, the taco shops. And if we don't focus on that, we're going to lose that.
Yeah.
So we said, all right, let's let something give, and let's focus our energy and our time into this. And since then, we've had 2 beautiful children. We're going on to our 2nd and our 3rd restaurant this year for the tacos. We've got the one spot on the east side, and we're opening a spot in Jamestown again this year that we had a Shack Forever that's now going to be an actual brick and mortar. And today you got the solid commissary that we're building. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, we're still moving ahead. I'm close to 40. Kel's in her 40s, and we got these beautiful kids, and that's what's important to us now.
Yeah.
The fast casual restaurant game is exciting to us. It's a different set of challenges. It's a different set of goals. I feel like more of a businessman than I do a chef some days, which is exciting to me because it's a whole new set of challenges. But I miss throwing on, a set of whites and a cone spoon in my hand. Like, I miss that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do that at home for my kids now. And, they love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't have to deal with a fucking stupid Yelp review.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'm actually doing it for someone I love. Yeah, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? So, I actually dig doing it, love cooking it for my family, and that's the type of shit that's fun. And I get calls, you know what I mean, throughout the year from homies from all over the country that want to, let's do dinner, let's do this, and that's been fun. The last 2 or 3 years I've cooked all over the place. And that's been the best part of being a chef lately, is being able to travel, meet new people, and cook for a cause, and cook for something that is meaningful.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know what I mean? So yeah, man.
Fuck yeah, chef. So what is there any plans in the future for Tallulah's Taquerias?
Yeah. So our big goal is to rent this thing up to 5+ stores. We have a goal in mind. We have a trajectory at the moment. We've been successful with kind of coming together with a business model of what that can look like. A 5 or 10 year plan. And right now the eye on the goal is to create something that kind of allows us to be in a space that we feel comfortable with. You know what I mean? Cook food that's meaningful to us.
Yeah.
Serve people that are, eating with us a couple times a week. Our check average is not $120 a person anymore. It's 12. And so we're serving people more times in a more meaningful way.
I hear you.
And that feels good to me.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I mean?
for sure.
We're actually feeding our community rather than, a select few that can afford it. And that was a little bit of it too, at the end of it. It was like, wow, man, are we actually, are we making an impact on the community or not? You know what I mean?
Are we cooking for ourselves, or are we cooking for them?
There was a little bit of ego there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and when you're cooking with ego, like sometimes it's not very meaningful.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like what we do now is very impactful. It directly impacts our small community here, and that gives me way more enjoyment than than not. So
Fuck yeah, chef.
yeah, bro.
So,
Yeah.
chef, I want to thank you for taking us down memory lane.
That was a serious memory lane.
That's serious memory lane, bro.
Damn.
It's all good.
Time is
But I'm sure that, your message is going to inspire a lot of people who either come from rough upbringings and have to better themselves without any help. But it's really what I've come to find in all these conversations is it's those mentors, those guys here and there that point you in the right direction, that turn your whole life path into what you find at the end here. So, Chef, thank you once again.
Yeah, it's my
Sucio
pleasure.
Talk, episode 13, signing off.